Happy Friday, everyone. I want to apologize for my tardiness. I was in such a deep beauty rest. And the time just slipped away. Oh, let's introduce our panelists for tonight. We have Mistaken, Coach K, Enos, Marcus, Trigger Mike, and AP. My name is Shan Monet, and this is a chic critique. Like a hot mess. I just had to wake up and just jump on here because I was already late.
Oh, you're good.
Oh my gosh. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. Being on time is, the thing to
What? The first time, listen, the first time Marcus has ever been on time is the time that I am.
do. It ain't what you've done. It's what's the last thing you've done. So
Ever.
is that what people be saying? What have you done for me lately?
This has been a crazy week for me. Anyhow, everybody, can you unmute your mics and say hello or something, you people?
No.
So, okay, whatever. We'll get straight to the subject then. What went wrong? So we actually have so I can wake up a little bit. Let's just go ahead and go to the clip, okay? It'll help me out a little bit.
Then why open up your legs and show us in a negative light? Stand up and let your light so shine. You're beautiful. Their message should be a message that is beautiful.
Music like what we just heard from Lil' Kim is hurting the morality of our nation. Do you think it goes that far, really?
We have a whole generation of children that are being wiped out from an AIDS epidemic. Why can't you sing
music? You just can't blame.
No, I'm not.
At least during certain times of the day, lyrics like are in Lil' Kim's hardcore album. In my opinion, it would be against the law to air them.
Yeah, people who can tell you her songs and don't know their multiplication tables.
Using articles about what you like to do orally and what you like to receive and all that. I mean, stuff like that's your personal business. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you want to air that out there.
Just because there's a demand, that does not make it right.
And I think sex does sell, but it may not sell forever. You're going to grow up.
We're going to say goodbye, everybody.
So, found that little clip from the 90s. I do believe that was early 90s. Well, with Lil' Kim is late 90s, I think. Anyhow, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Because in my opinion, that's when it all started. Like the pop culture thing started. That's just my opinion. I know there was Uncle Luke, but Uncle Luke was not like mainstream. He was popping at parties, maybe on the radio after a certain time, or jukebox where you had to pay to see. So I think Lil' Kim was probably one of the first to bring that type of music to pop stream.
Did you see Naughty by Nature OPP video?
I did, but I never. So I did see OPP, but the thing about OPP is I don't think that even though it was the lyrics and what it was talking about was very degrading. Absolutely. So we can definitely bring them into the situation. It was the first time I ever seen a woman mainstream, her and Adina Howard, mainstream being so sexual, and pop. Again, you would hear it, a little late at night, but pop when it was played during the day, a lot of those types of things. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Because all of y'all are not, you were born and you were in the 90s. I mean, y'all are younger than me, but y'all were.
Yeah, no, I was
Lil' Kim.
Yeah. We had fun during the 90s. That was the time of the basement parties and the if you were in Chicago, had the juke parties in the basement and the grinding. That was the grinding on the wall. I guess they don't do that no more. Y'all missing out. That shit was fun. I mean, you shouldn't do that. You're right.
They ain't grinding on the wall. They grind on each other.
Well, yeah. So you would just lean against the wall.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. You didn't go to none of them parties. All right, got you.
I didn't know that wasn't what I was envisioning.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you guys agree that that is during that time in how we have evolved into the music that we have today? Like that was a starting point, and now that we are to the point that we are today, do you guys see, and I know we've kind of hit on this before, but do you guys think that that's a lot of what has like what we're seeing today, so to speak? Or what are your thoughts on the video?
So anybody else want to say first? Oh, okay, so I think that today is a progression of everything that happened then. Like, because I kind of struggle with this because like we live in a time where like prostitution is illegal and all of those things, right? But there was a time where people could outwardly sell sex and that they can like literally sell sex on the corner and do all of these things. So I think that they didn't mass market it in the same way, but they also didn't have the ability to construct media in the same way that we can and then target it to the masses. So what newspaper couldn't do, TV could, and what TV couldn't do, social media can currently do, right? So is it so much that the standard of sexuality or hypersexuality or graphic image depiction has changed, or is the ability to mass market it and make it more normalized changed? And then you mix that in with the algorithm and how people gravitate towards sex, violence, or any extreme case thing that can kind of shape reality on the fringes. But that's just my thoughts on it.
I think along the lines of what you were saying, Shan, in regards to the reason was, I guess, a big deal, and pulling into some of what Marcus said is how Lil Kim was marketed, because I would say that she would be the first, like, you had some other musicians who was singing stuff that was raunchy, but because she was a female that was singing about sex and things like that, that was kind of a big thing, and so I think she was the figure that opened the gates for the next generation of women that began to sing about sex and stuff like that. But I would say, like, how with each generation it got like raunchier and raunchier. So once you open those, like, the floodgates, just a lot more begin, to come out. And I don't think that I think she represented also what has always been going on, just in general, in terms of women being sexualized anyway. She just did it in music and got paper for it, versus, like, media was used, like, for women being sexualized, like to sell cars, to sell beer, things like that. So I don't think it's anything new in terms of doing that, but I think the difference here is how she was marketed and how it was marketed in music.
So I've been thinking about it, and I don't really agree with that. I think, like, when we look at like blues and jazz and you go back to those lyrics, they were equally as vulgar as Lil Kim, right? Even their costumes and the way where they would perform. I think what really made the difference with the Lil Kim era is that's when children started to be put in front of a TV and parents started to become less involved. And I think that was that shift where now they're expecting society to raise their children instead of taking a more active role because of the way that work was set up. I don't know that it's really changed all that much, more so that children aren't shielded from it the way that they used to be.
You stole my talking point, because we've had a little bit of time to sit here and think about it, Shan. So I think two things. One, the reason why Lil Kim caught so much flack is that was more of the hardening of women, because Adina Howard's lyrics were just as abrasive as Lil Kim's, but she wasn't the hardened woman. She was the t-shirt and your panties on chick. Now, to Nas's point, it was an era where parents weren't really in the home necessarily because they, you got either one parent or both parents had to work. So there was really no one there to monitor what we consumed. So, and I'll fast forward to something more anecdotal. So the song WAP with what's the chick's name?
Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion.
Yes. The first time I heard that song, I was going to actually take an opportunity to have a conversation with my daughter about the song and about what it meant, and kind of use it as an icebreaker into some deeper conversations. And as soon as she heard what I was about to do, she said, "Oh, Cardi B does not feed my soul. We don't listen to that." So, so I think that we have to be more active parents now than even back then because of how at your fingertips they have the media these days.
All right, so let me so you spot on, AP. When I love the part where you said that Little Kim does represent the hardening of women, even the stuff that women used to sing back in the day. The reason why people could tolerate it, in my opinion, is that it still had a softness and a femininity to it, and it was still about pleasing men or doing stuff to please men. That whole Little Kim era and the hardening that you talked about kind of represented women, a man pleasing a woman. It's almost like a dynamic switch. And Inaz, I gotta call Cap because the lyrics were not as raunchy. Okay, when I think Little Kim, get your feelings in it, get me open while I'm coming down your throat, and I don't think the 1950s kind of had like. I could be wrong. I'm not a strong reviewer of music history past, let's say, Michael Jackson's era, but no, Lil Kim kind of went hard, man. That's all I got to say.
I think it also goes back to what AP was saying too about access. So even let's say it was the same exact lyrics back in the 30s or the 50s. The difference was it was housed in a jazz club where children did not have access to it. So it was more adults. It was adult entertainment, where I think with Little Kim, it was more mainstream, where not just adults had access to it. Children had access to it as well. Young teens had access to it as well. So I think that's probably the caveat, even if it, back in the day, because I've heard some older songs that I was like, oh God, they were like, we'll get on this generation about how raunchy their songs was, but I remember seeing something that was like on like Instagram, how they were going back and forth, like, the son was like, oh, y'all was saying how bad our songs are, and then they just started playing some of our songs. I was like, oh damn, yeah, our songs were kind of raunchy as well. And listening to the previous generation, they did some of their lyrics was raunchy as well. But again, I think it's all about access. Whereas there was there was a line drawn in terms of who was able to access that kind of music, versus now it doesn't matter how old you are. You whatever age range you are, you have access. Like even seeing on Instagram, you can see little kids singing. I remember seeing one, we were just talking about that song. What is it? I don't know what it's called, but it's talking about Booty Hole Brown. Like a little kid, it was like 3 years old singing it. So I think that's the difference.
So look, I got a song for. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, and I would the only pushback or challenge I have for you, Mistaken, is the older music was that type of music was mostly done by men. It wasn't done by women. When you listen to the older, like the older music is when we go 60s and 70s, the women didn't necessarily sing about their body parts or being bust down. It would be a little bit of a softer sound. Now you had men like let's say Clarence Carter, who would, I stroke it to the east and I stroke it to the west, and I think that makes a big difference on the outrage, also. So that's a little pushback that I had for you.
I think the access does. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was just gonna also say, like, Miss Higgins' point is really interesting because there's so many variables to this, and I think the access is a huge part because, I mean, I was born in '95, so I mean, all I know is all I know. But you'd hear music, on the radio, or I remember watching a bunch of music videos. And then of course there was iPods later on, but for a while there you had to buy everything or upload like your CDs. But now it's like you get access to everything from Spotify to YouTube or whatever, and it's all, which I think is great for artists, of course, but I also think too our culture, just in the West, has also become more acceptable of different things. There's more tolerance, just in general. I'm just speaking, from a bigger picture. So I don't know if that's part of it too, but I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
You just made me feel really old.
I don't want to say anything, but I just want to let you know where I'm coming from.
I know she said she was born in 95. I'm like, oh shit.
I know a lot of classic rock. I do know a lot of classic stuff, but stop it. Sorry.
Dang, Kay, you were born in 90 what?
95.
You know what? Look. I think anybody who was born before 2000 at this point is kind of looked at as like.
I'm not like that.
So,
95, I was in high school. Jesus.
God damn.
Yeah, me too. I was too.
God damn.
Okay, so I have a question. So even when I heard Little, even though I wasn't a Lil Kim fan, like at that time, because I just didn't like the kind of music. Even then, though, there was a part, and I can say the same true with all my friends who listened to Little Kim, who were fans of Little Kim. I think that we knew, I guess I'm kind of agreeing with Inaz. I think that we knew that this is just music. Like, nobody wants to be that. We're just listening and we're singing in halftime. You were singing, saying lyrics. You're like, you weren't even really feeling it like that. You were feeling it because the beat was nice and you were just like, but it was never something that you would think, oh, that's what I want to be like. I'm wondering, so what are your thoughts on this? When did the mind shift to say, oh, that's okay to be like that? I think that's cool to be, all of these things, like what?
Well, not to get too deep with it, but I noticed that we could always flirt, and that part I did see. They've made movies about this and Footloose, and you could tell that there was always children who were willing, especially in the high school age group, to kind of skirt the line, right? Religion was usually in the way. Everybody would try to put on their church dress and behave in front of their parents and the elders, but you always had to be answerable to someone at the end of the day. Your behavior couldn't be outwardly bad in front of the community. You get your ass whooped. If your neighbor saw you doing something, they would tell your parents. So you had a large amount of accountability in your environment for your behavior. So once again, the absence of that environment leads to a good breeding ground for debauchery. So the absence of fathers, right, and nobody in the neighborhood or people in the neighborhood now being scared to check a child, right? They'll see whatever's going on. They'll see two teenagers humping behind a dumpster, mind their business, and just go about their way. So I think that also contributes to it. There's nobody checking this behavior in the house. I hear now, like, it's kind of scary. I don't know why my ear is so keen to it, but I hear everything inappropriate that comes out of my children's mouths. And then I have to tone down my reaction because they just learned that from somebody at camp. Right. So it's just like they're just trying it out. And I'm like, whoa. And I jump on it with immediate effect and I never hear it again. So think about how many kids, even the single moms, you can't hear everything. You're one parent. Right. So Usually in a house with two, you have double the effect of people listening out for problems, redirecting them on site, right? So when you lose that parent, it takes away your ability to be efficient and correct your children and all of that. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Another thing, Sugar Mike, is foresight, right? When people talk about the value of fathers in the home and men in the home, I think they really underestimate the importance of foresight. For example, the kids could have came in the house and been singing Pound Town or whatever, right? The mother or younger parents, mostly younger mothers that I've seen do this, they kind of encourage their kids and think that it's funny to watch them do certain stuff. Like it's funny to watch them curse. It's funny to watch them like twerk. It's fun. Like even what's going on with the fathers who don't have primary custody, aren't in the home. Usually, what you'll see is the mothers allowing the kids to like dance and do things the fathers completely disapprove of, but because they're not in the house and don't have authority over that household for whatever reason, those kids then are able to go down these tangents, and the mother or these parents lack the foresight, and it's mostly the mothers who lack the foresight in order to see how this can transition this into something that's going to be a huge problem for them down the line. Yeah,
absolutely. So not only is that true, do you know where I probably saw this for the very first time, where I realized, oh snap, we're really in trouble, even if I didn't realize it right there on the spot? I now look back and said, this is where we all went wrong. We've all gone to the barbershop that was also a beauty salon.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw the ladies in the back, you know, some of them will have their kid with them while they're doing hair, and some song came on, and the boy starts shaking his butt and reciting the lyrics, and it was hella cursing in there. And all the barbers like literally just looking like, damn, look at this little, but all the women in there clapping. Just like you say, like, hey, look at him, little cute. And they're like, this is not my child. I can't. And I'm looking at them. I'm looking at the barbers, look at the boy, and look at the women. And I was like, oh, they don't approve of this, but that's not their child. So they're not going to say anything. But they absolutely know these women are doing something wrong that they do not approve of. And like you said, they have the foresight to know this is not going to end well for the boy. So it's pretty crazy.
Sugar Mike, if you don't mind, I don't mean to deviate, but what do you think caused the men in the barbershop to no longer say anything? Because once upon a time, if something like that would have occurred, every barber would have known, man, what the hell are you doing? Sit your ass down. What do you think happened to where they don't feel like they can say anything now?
Well, I mean, it's really just a part of the single mother, the evolution of single moms. The fact that they first off, you already have a degeneration in like a degenerative society if the women don't believe they're doing nothing wrong. So if this is the part where males never actually even had to step up, because when you had a unified community that was unified by ideals, religion, same values, same character, the women would correct it before the men ever got there. There would be a woman in there, be like, get that boy down. And still you see some remnants of the older, but they're usually really old head women. But at some point, there'll be a middle-aged woman like, get that boy off there. In fact, tell him to go sweep hair with the boys, get him out from around all these women. There's nobody like that anymore. They like to encourage it. In fact, I think the bad part about it is the man was removed from the home. The woman, she's struggling. She's working while the boy is there. At some point, they all kind of dared to raise a better man than a man could and raise them their way. And we kind of saw that happen in the 90s, where women were really gung-ho about being single mothers. I don't need nobody. I got this. Power to the women. We're getting our education. It all started in that time. So
I have a question. Do you think that do you think that it has something to do with young motherhood? Maybe having kids?
Absolutely.
Has a lot to do with it, more so than, maybe those parents who are of younger age, maybe 18, a little bit younger, or early age people, and they have children. And what ends up happening is those younger mothers are teaching, because of the
I don't want to say young by age, because that'd be incorrect.
Okay.
Historically, mothers have always been young, and the lack of community structure, the community kept them. They held them to a standard, and those women were a lot more mature than the younger moms now. So when you say younger, I agree, but I think it's a maturity thing and a mentality for motherhood.
So I don't know if y'all ever been around like older people who kind of had this mentality where they always want the next thing. So it's like a weird mixture of hyper capitalism and hyper socioeconomic climate, right? And in doing so, they they do this thing where if a group that they admire or look up to does it, they believe it's okay, and then they promote it, right? So an example of that would be like, let me see how can I say this? It's okay, like so my grandma would tell me something about, oh, I shop at Marshall Fields. I'd be like, Grandma, that's not the store where the white folks do it. Like she's from that era where they would say something like that. I don't know if y'all have old elderly people who are like that. I think that the women of like my mother's age group, with the adoption of feminism and the sexual liberation type of movement, were so fluent with the things that they would allow. It was like a dichotomy between them rejecting the old norms of what women did and what women thought was acceptable because they saw it under the guise of how men viewed women, and them trying to like also like play like this weird social Jones, like keeping up with the Joneses type of game. Do you get what I'm saying? Did anybody see anything like that as well?
Yeah, but that doesn't have. I would think. I mean, the Joneses didn't shake their butt and talk about sex, did they?
Yes.
Maybe
So
trying to fit in,
when you look at sexual liberation, if you were to say like this group of women has sexual liberation, we're in the free love era. You got peace, love, and happiness, right? The free love and free drug era of the 60s and the early 70s, right? If you were to be keeping up with those Joneses, that would drag you into that same sphere. It's the same. All right, it's the same thing as.
Well, they were considered a subculture, though. They weren't the mass. So when you're saying like the free love and all of that, they were in direct opposition of what mainstream was. So that's why they were considered a subculture. So I think that's a little different.
So I feel like mainstream. Well, this is just a brainstorming thing because I don't have an exact, like I didn't do any research on this, right? But as it's formulating, I'm seeing it a little clearer, at least to me. And it seems like the it wasn't as much a fringe as it was people trying to keep it a fringe, but among that age demographic, that seemed like the way to go, right? So the elders would classify that as a phase or something. But amongst that age demographic, that was kind of the general idea. Because I always question, like, what is it about, like, the parents that are, like, from age 50 to, like, 65, 70 that made them so different where it's, like, it's almost impossible to get them to admit wrong and stuff. And it's just a different mentality. Like, their parents are different than that age group has, like, very similar qualities. I don't know if I don't know what generation they would be labeled, but they have very similar qualities.
Each generation.
You say what?
Each generation, I think, has their little Kims, right? It's just gonna look different in the past generation, but they probably had their little Kims of what their generation was versus what ours is, and versus what the next generation that came after us, like the booty hole brown girl. So
I get that. So look, I looked up some songs.
We find another name for Shorty other than
I don't know her name.
It's Sexy Red.
Yeah, how about Booty Hole Brown?
So I get that mistaken. I looked at a song from like 1924, right? And in that song, the lady was saying something like, "My nipples big as my thumb, and I got the type of coochie that can make a dead man come." And that's 1924. They were saying stuff like that. So the fringe has always existed where they said that, but I don't think in mass the people was burning their bras. I don't think in mass they was trying to like.
Are people burning their bras? Did I miss that memo? Because I still have mine.
This is the 60s. This is the era that I'm talking about where I think that the free
bras
love
are expensive too. That's crazy.
Where the free love stuff move forward.
I think Marcus is onto something, right? Because even if it is a fringe, if it's being practiced in those in a in a higher socioeconomic bracket, everybody below will look to imitate it, right? Because when you do that, then you associate yourself with that particular socioeconomic group, right? We saw it when it came to feminism. We saw it when it came to sexual liberation. And I think this trend of over sexualization in music, especially with like the presentation of visuals behind the music, I think that it's the same thing, right? Because the other thing that they do is they present these people or these caricatures to be wealthy, right? So you're already presenting them to be somebody who's a higher socioeconomic ranking than the people who are consuming the music. So I think that makes it a lot easier to emulate. I think that was a brilliant point.
Do you know, I kind of want to take all the pressure off of Lil Kim for a second, because before Lil Kim, you know, when it comes to pop, Madonna. I mean, Madonna was pretty big woman. You know, she was a mega star and she preached sexuality. I mean, most of her platform was about sex in some type of way.
Do you think they were accepted differently because they were reaching? Do you think that they were targeting a different demographic, or do you think Lil Kim was received differently than Madonna because of presentation?
Do you know what?
I think that for us, I think Lil Kim had more influence over African Americans than Madonna. Because I think that we listened to Madonna music, but it wasn't like you were trying to be like Madonna. You know what I'm saying? But Lil Kim was actually probably an idol. I don't know, because she wasn't mine. But maybe somebody, like, you know, people looked at her as an idol, and maybe from there it's like, oh, you know, I want to be like little girls. Maybe like, oh, I want to be like Little Kim, and they don't even know what they're saying, but they turn out to be like Little Kim.
So
yeah.
I don't know if you ever like, so we had this thing, right, where a lot of the older people, like, so from my neighborhood, like, it'd be people who might not have been tough growing up, and then once everybody died or got locked up that was actually tough, they would come out and fabricate.
Well, we're gonna get to that in a second. I want to keep that part out of this section.
I was going to parallel the point to people.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to parallel the point to people. So women might have talked about, I guess that is kind of going into the art and life. All right, never mind.
Yeah, I will say this to the Madonna and Lil Kim comparison. I'm not sure, but I don't think they're directly comparable all the time, and I mean that across the spectrum for all races. For what I'm about to say, there is always and I'm talking about in every ethnic group all over the world, because rhythmic music doesn't just exist here in America. When there is sensuality in the middle to upper class representation, it's taken a lot different. And Madonna was a sensual, sexual pop star. Rap females and those Little Kim types are associated with the ghetto. And I think that's one of the reasons they get received different, because we have a lot of, in fact, Beyonce was a sensual kind of sex figure, but she's a pop star. And the one thing that pop stars can do that the world likes is that even it's like they're taking off a little bit of their bra, but then they put it back on and like, haha, you can't see. They're more like teases, because Beyonce basically lived her life in a way that just made her respectable, no matter what she was saying in her music. And it's almost as if the ones who are super ghetto all the time, putting they cooch on people's faces in videos, you can't really redeem yourself from that. That's really associated with the ghetto. And I don't mean ghetto as in black. I mean ghetto as in ghetto. There are white trash artists that do this type of stuff. They're all kind of received the same way entirely, by the entire world.
So, but to that point though, Madonna didn't, when she initially came on the music scene, was what we would classify as white trash. She didn't start to get into her classy era until her career had kind of slowed down and she was a little bit more established, where she had to rebrand in order to do something a little bit different. But there wasn't this grand rebellion against Madonna when she first came out.
I remember, well, maybe it was just among like church folks, but
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what.
it was.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
she
I
was
was gonna
pretty
say. When
divisive.
that like
I
a
think she
version
caused
came
a
out.
stir.
You
I
know
just think,
what?
yeah.
Once I think about it, you remember that song? You guys probably don't remember the song, but in the 80s, there was a song by Tina Turner, and it was like, I'm your private dancer.
Yep.
A dancer for money. I mean,
Yeah.
even though the video didn't show anything risque, it was just like, but those words.
Was that muscle memory? Because you kind of got into that whole song.
Yeah, see, them shoulders was rolling.
I love your private dancer.
So I just want to I want to make a quick point. We have to keep in mind when, and I'm sorry to say this, Coach K, but when white people started actually buying rap, think about this for a minute. It started happening somewhere right around 1993 when rap was truly being given to the masses and not it was no longer just urban. Lil Kim's first album dropped in 1991. So or 1998 96, I'm sorry, 96. And that was in the middle of of that explosion, and so it's no longer guys. Now we have this female, this hard female rapping these lyrics, and our little white girls are out buying these albums mimicking what they see in urban culture, because prior to her there was MC Light who would rap and had some risque lyrics. Queen Latifah never really did the risque lyric piece, but she was also a rapper, and she never really caught the kind of flack that Lil Kim caught. I think that we have to keep in mind when the music really started to boom and who was listening to and buying what while going to whose concerts. Because Lil Kim, if memory serves, and you guys can correct me, I believe she was under Bad Boy, under the Bad Boy label. Under the Bad Boy label, you had people like Biggie, who had just recently passed away, but he was starting to Diddy was starting to really grow a stable, and those concerts were huge. So now you have what was in an urban area now reaching mainstream. So needless to say that white fathers didn't want their daughters listening to that, so they're gonna make a fuss about it. I think that like timing has a lot to do with it as well. I just wanted to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
And Foxy Brown, because Foxy Brown was in that category as well.
God, she sound like.
But let's take that. Let's take Lil Kim. Do you think that maybe it was the combination? Because you just said there was Bad Boy. Biggie was really big at the time. Like he was one of the major artists at the time. Do you think it was Oh yeah. So do you think it was a combination of, okay, now you have Lil Kim who's doing this, you have Biggie who's saying, what did Biggie talk about women? What's some of the songs?
Love it when you call me Big Papa.
That ain't the song. I'm talking about the one like when one of the raunchy ones talking about women.
Oh, he had several.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying to you is the combination of that. So you got the guys who are listening to Biggie and women too, but then you have Lil Kim, and they're all saying the same, like kind of pushing this narrative about women. At the same time, so you're getting double dose, like more. And these are your big artists at the time, and you're hearing it from both ends. And then you got P Diddy on yachts with half-naked women with money saying that this should be praised. This is how you live the life. And it was like all at once. Like this is what living the life is like. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like somebody said earlier, like it's kind of you felt like, these are the people who are up here. In order to be up here with them, you have to be like them type of a situation. Do you think that it was like just a combination of so many things at one time and they're all preaching the same message?
So I was going to get into this because I thought it bled over into the art imitate life portion. That's why I kind of went down the story. But I think that what you have is like natural competition that happens. So it's kind of like social evolution, right? So the version of something that's represented, the next generation will always try and compete and be better than that thing. That's to the positive and to the negative. Athletes jump higher now, and people look at violent crime as like NBA YoungBoy say, you're not a man until you catch your first body, right? that wasn't something we would have said in the 90s. So it's a progression of the negativity, and it's also a progression of things. It's like evolution, because things don't typically stay stagnant. They either regress or increase. And if these people marketed this music in a way where it was extremely sexually explicit, like I remember hearing a story about Lil' Kim having to get her stomach pumped. That was a real major thing. Everybody was saying she got a stomach pump. And you fast forward, and now like Sukihana is talking about how she loved to get peed on, and you got girls talking about how they like wake up and
scratch. Coochie scratch.
Yeah, like so the progression of those things. I'm curious as to where this can go next, because I think we kind of reaching the apex of like what more can you really, like the only thing I can see is it going.
My question is, I'm kind of like the people in the video. Like, why do you feel the need to tell us this stuff? Like, why? Okay, you can be the biggest freak you want to be behind closed doors. What do you get out of telling people?
The moral degradation. So go ahead.
No, just real quick. The same reason that these thumbnails be so salacious, right? Eyeballs and attention bring in revenue. And in the capitalism state, that's the end all be all, no matter at what expense. Like hypercapitalism is what it is. All right, my fault, Trigger Mike, you got it.
Nah, I just I see it as one of those things where nobody should ask us why we're on YouTube talking about this anymore. It's apparent because we have, like I always say, like it's not good for men to display such behaviors of low morals and low class. It's not good when men do it, but we built in the punishment for men in society. And what basically happened is that women kind of took advantage that nobody's really checking them on anything, and that they've eased out a way in society to basically shame the shamer, shame the traditional shamer out of shaming you. And the reason why that's very dangerous, and the reason why people like me are on YouTube letting you know we do not approve. We have daughters, we have wives. I don't want them listening to you. I don't approve of this behavior, is because you should know that if a woman goes unchecked in a large population of women, they will always go too far. It's almost like you go places. If I go a place and there's a Sukiana in there, I don't want to be black no more. I know some shit's gonna happen that's gonna embarrass the shit out of me, and I'm gonna just be sitting there like this. That's what happens. Like, we're in a society of moral decay where it's gotten so bad that they don't even know they're doing anything wrong. She thinks she's being outspoken. Right. That's it. Like, ask them to describe their behavior. That's how they're gonna describe it. So yeah, it's pretty terrible. But like Marcus said, this is the fever pitch that we have to hit. It's going to get better before it can get worse. And it's going to take, and I see it happening. I really see it happening at the trace levels right now. But this causes more women to be like, okay, ew, this is disgusting. Sisters, I just can't. And they're starting to defect. By the week, by the month, by the year, more and more women, not just of all types, are like, I can't really get down with this. No, I can't. Sorry. And some of them will go into hiding and not say anything, but more women will start to speak up.
Oh, go ahead.
So
I'm gonna play a video. Go ahead.
All right. I have some pushback for that, Trigger Mike. Like, they know that they're doing something wrong and not that they're just being outspoken. And I think that the point where that was really highlighted when one of the city girls was being interviewed, talking about she doesn't want her daughter to be a city girl.
Since you're saying that, pause for the calls. Let's look at this video.
Wait, no. Wait. Do the super chats really quick before we go into the video.
Okay. Where are the super chats? Because I have to go.
Can Coach K or Enos read the super chat?
I'll pull them up.
I was just gonna say, Coach K.
The video thing. Go ahead.
Coach K, read the super chats.
What? Okay. Dub Will, $5. Salute to the panel. Thanks, Dub Will. Oh, Coach K. Became a YouTube member.
Hold on. Let me say the next one. Let me say this one real quick. All I need in this life of sin is Shan as my girlfriend. We
Oh, here
appreciate
we
you,
go.
Ali.
Here we go. Can y'all get a room? Jesus
Happy
Christ.
birthday, P.
Here
No,
we go
AP,
with this.
you can do the.
No. You we need a lady to read.
Go ahead, you got it. I just had to do the Tupac voice. Okay, Ali, Sexy Red. What the hell? Sexy Red, I'm out of town. Thugging with my rounds. My coochie pink. My booty hole brown. Where the niggas at? I'm looking for the pros. Quit playing.
Is that a song?
That is a song.
Quit
Well,
playing, suck a
Come
bitch.
that is not what. Wait.
Pound
That is
town.
not
You
what
just left
worries
Pound
me.
Town.
Ali, why the hell do you know all the lyrics to that shit? That's what I want to know.
He Googled it. Ali don't like that
Leave
damn
Ali
song.
alone.
What the fuck? I'm like,
He don't like that song. He Googled that.
why you know all
Ali
the
again with a $4.99. Don't forget Sade. She revealed skin, but she was so elegant and classy. She was
Oh God.
regarded as regal, not trashy.
Listen. I will pass out if I see Helen Falashade in person. That's what I'm talking about. Elegance. You have to leave mystery to yourself.
How about Patra? Put it up through my bumper, baby. Y'all remember Patra?
I don't remember, but I'm gonna look for it.
John the Baptist with the 5 ball. We appreciate you, John the Baptist. Demonic behavior is what modernism appreciates.
I do remember pull up to my bumper.
I know you do. Don't do that.
Marcus Evans with the 5 ball. We appreciate you, Marcus. Unchecked femininity is only a danger to others, but a danger to itself. Oh, it's not only a danger to others, but a danger to itself. I agree.
Oh no, she didn't.
One of the things he
parents
said
did.
it, Ali, when he said Sade revealed skin, but she was elegant and classy. I think that is also a difference now, is that the line has been blurred or has been skewed between what sexy is versus what
Elegant is, yep.
elegant or trashy, or it is different. Like the trashy dress is considered sexy by some.
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm
They don't
saying?
know.
So that line has been blurred.
They know.
between
They
what
know.
that looks like.
They know.
No, I think that there's some people. Listen. I do think that there's some people who just don't have a touch of class. In their mind, they think they look at, and when they step out, they think they the baddest thing, and you like, that's so trashy, honey. But they don't see it the same way that you see it.
She said they blurred the line. Mistaken, they ignore the lines. That I've seen it to where people don't, or women rather, they can't read the room. They can't read the situation. How do you show up at a barbecue or pool party as a single woman who was invited as maybe one of the married women's sisters, but it's all married people here, and you wear not a bathing suit, like a thought suit type bathing suit, high cut, and you know how women feel when their husbands are there. Everybody like, what the There are children here. You see them? They just ignore the line.
No class.
And they've been doing it for so long that they always want to get defensive. Like, what are these people looking at? It's not like I did anything wrong. How do you not know that you didn't read the room to say, I'm going somewhere where there are wives, I'm going somewhere where there are husbands. Let me put on a very nice, sensible one piece. This is not that type of party, right? They think that stuff is appropriate everywhere. And what it is that these women are not artistic in the casual, in the dress sense. Learning how to be elegant and sexy without being trashy is an art form. And women used to be taught that art. They don't teach it anymore.
I want to get to you.
Thank you. They know. I think we really, sometimes we do this thing where we give people too much credit, especially in their ignorance. They know, because you know what? They don't wear that thought dress to the work party.
They do. I've seen it.
Yo, I wish my wife was awake.
I
wish
promise
my
you.
wife was awake at the Christmas party 2 years ago. The girl had just gotten a job, and I saw her at the bar before I went to go get me and my wife some drinks at the bar, and she walked in, was like, "Hey, my already drunk, titties out," like, and they were big, so they're while she jumping there, I was like, "There's no way she's about to walk in here with all her colleagues like this." Like, I wanted to take my suit jacket off, and be like, you know, you want to put, but it was too late. I was like, you know, you want to put this on. And then she walked in there. Even the dude that was talking on the microphone did like a double take and you don't wear that to a work fun. They do not have any class. Like a lot of these ladies don't.
I think it's across the board though. Even if you're like, I remember working in a restaurant and seeing the people. Oh, sorry, Miss Egan, if I cut you off. Go ahead.
Nah, she didn't finish her thought.
Or Inaz, go ahead.
Well, I was corrected.
You
so
look
I'm
this way.
They do. Like, yo, they do.
They do. I went to a prom and the AP had on something, one of my APs that I was like, it was a see-through dress, and it was a high school prom.
AP, you out here wearing see-through dresses?
Oh, you gotta be in.
She ain't talking about me, bruh.
Yeah, it was the illusion. Well, assistant principal, it was the illusion of see-through. So it wasn't actually see-through, but it had like that skin tone material underneath, like lace. So it looks like it's see-through.
Okay,
you know,
I know you would never wear a dress, AP. I'm talking about like I thought maybe you know how I heard somebody came like to the pizza event.
You ain't
with a
shit.
blazer on with no shirt on. Like they just had the blazer on and they didn't have a shirt on.
I got a dad bod, bro. I got a shirt on.
But that's okay though. At this point, I mean,
I'm not even going front.
think just across the board, but even in like business casual settings, people are like showing up to interviews or showing up like just across the board from. There's really no class, but it's also like what's acceptable. Even, you know, sometimes if you were to show up to a work event, you might, something inside you is like, I know I can't wear this, but I don't think that standard or that level of the standard, it's different now, I think. But
I kind of agree. I don't actually think that they know. I think in their mind they say, "Oh, this is cute. Oh, this is hot. Oh, this is gonna pop tonight." I honestly don't think they.
Oh, I'm about to get me one. Yeah, I don't think they know either.
The safe haven used to be the church, though. Like some of them, they knew what your Sunday best looked like, but even that has changed. I've seen people in club outfits at church.
Let me say this. Question.
Come as you are.
Real fast, because you brought a good point up. Do you think that because people don't go to church anymore like they used to, do you think that the lack of going to, like, the people, since we have this new generation of people who don't go to church, they're not raised in the church, do you think that has a lot to do with it? Because, you know, church kind of kept you in line a little bit.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
No.
I think religion maybe, but not church specifically, because it's a lot of, like, I got a theory on where a lot of this male activity is coming from. And
well, it's also, remember, it's not, like you said, it's not the church, it's the enforcement of the religion. Once you took the dad out, remember, dad were the enforcers. Dads were the enforcers. How you getting out the house with something with your dad there? Like, you know, it would mitigate a lot of this.
If a girl want to get out the house with something, she does.
But
she sneaks it out, go to school.
But I'm still saying that you can't escape the community in general. Listen, I just wanted to. You ever had that lady come to the door? Like, I'm concerned. I saw her out, and I know you didn't let her out the house like that.
Here's the thing, right? And I'm gonna toss it back to Marcus because he was supposed to go next. But now you're seeing these young girls, like teenagers, with their butt cheeks hanging out, and their dad walking right beside them.
Where?
It's a fact.
Holding it everywhere.
You see it all over the place.
And crop tops too.
Down the street, like the dad is literally right there beside them.
Yep.
Sucker ass dad.
We agree, Mike.
So,
but Inaz is right. I agree with you, Trigger Mike, but Inaz is absolutely right. You see it everywhere, and then it's like, what the hell?
I talked to the men in the back chat a lot about this, and they have a general premise that men today allow society to shape the way that they govern their masculinity and the things that they allow, right?
Yep.
So my pushback on it is, like that masculinity is pushback. So even if everyone in society decided that this was okay, if you don't feel it's right, and we claiming that we masculine, don't allow that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I think that men have, this is back on my it's all the man's fault. If men just took a stand, like y'all could say and do whatever y'all want, that shit ain't flying. No, you can laugh and play. It's not up for debate. It's not flying. Go sit down. And if you go outside like that, you won't have no more clothes. Like if you want to be naked, I'm taking everything. So you're gonna have to.
I not only agree with you, I just think that I definitely agree with you. I just think that the men lack the tools, right? I'm that way because I was taught to be that way, and I have various examples of men being that way and it working out for them. I do not look. I only lean on their understanding for help and governance with my fatherhood journey. These other men, they're literally being led basically by the gynocracy. And the worst part about being raised by a woman, then being in a relationship with a woman that was raised by a woman, and nobody's ever had any guidance or males, is that you think you put too much input as a father on what she says. The worst part about it is that a lot of men don't realize that women don't have the same instincts. This equality narrative hurt the both of us. It hurt women, it hurt men, it hurt fathers, it hurt mothers, because a lot of women today don't think they have to do anything they don't agree with. They don't lean on their man understanding. They don't lean on his logic. They think because they have a feeling that they're right. You see what I'm saying? So it takes masculinity, like you said, to be like, that shit ain't going down. Like I could write down 1,000 times I've said that in the house where my wife is like, oh, sure. And I cut her off like, that's not going down. And she'll look at me like, oh, he's serious. Well, I guess it's not going down because I can see something she cannot. I have the foresight. She does not. And she's learned to lean on that understanding. And the worst part about it, she'll come in 2 weeks later. Wow, you remember when I tried to get you to go to such and such? You know what that lady said her kid is doing now? That was really bad. And I'm sitting there like, well, thank you for affirming that my masculinity and my foresight does have positive effects on the family. And I just think that men don't have the tools to stand against their women and literally trust their own instinct despite the woman's disagreement.
Do you think those are men? Like, so I struggle with this because it's like, all right, like no matter who raised me, if somebody come open hand slap me, I'm fighting them. No matter who raised me, if a nigga trying to like have sex with me, I'm gonna kill him. Like, you know what I'm saying? If they try to forcefully take something from me, at what point is it, bro? Like you like. So there's only so much somebody can snatch from you.
You're
Marcus,
right.
we're having the same struggles, bro.
If we're going to say that women are behaving outside of their nature by trying to be overly masculine all the time, we have to admit that men are being outside of their nature by being docile and acquiescing to women's demands. I think there's two critical flaws here. Men, the black man's God is sex. So if he feels like he's going to lose sexual access, he'll acquiesce. That's his problem, right? That's
we was born with like permanent sexual access. It's called a hand. I'll beat my hand forever before I allow somebody to just dictate what's going to happen.
That's not what's wrong with my hand. I was about to put my hand. That's not what's wrong with my hand.
I ain't going.
Yeah, but I was like,
you already telling yourself, boo. It's okay.
I was like, damn, they're gonna think that's what's wrong with my hand. But
it do look like you got a wrist injury.
And then the fact that when he just said that you raised your hand, you're like,
you was like,
oh damn. But damn, what was the second one? So if they think they're gonna lose sexual access to the woman, they'll acquiesce to her. But the second part is that black men especially want to be liked by women in general. You see the way I behave on these panels. I believe I'm very consistent. My goal is never to be liked as long as I'm being true to the ideals and the values that I believe in. I don't give a damn who like me, especially women. Those men can't do that. So once the women disagree too much, they change in their position.
So I've seen you change your position when you amongst men to be liked, right? So I've seen you do that. But this the thing, because you called me a super simp the other day, right?
Oh,
see, Marcus, you over here simping when we was on.
You were simping.
Yeah. I remember you said that. So I'm calling it out. You have a stance. The men will come on and bark at it a little bit. You'll be like, you know what? Yeah, y'all all right.
Shut your ass up. No, I did not. Go find the clip. Nah, that's a heavy accusation.
Can I add something real quick?
So
Go
look,
find it.
my thing is, I think like people misinterpret this. When I be like, it's not the woman's fault and it's not because women don't do nothing wrong. It's because I point at the man. Like, bro, you should stand on your square. Not that she didn't do nothing wrong, but I don't give a fuck what she doing. Your ass supposed to be in charge. Your ass supposed to be the one to stand on your square. This is all you. You were directly responsible for everything that fall up under this umbrella. So so what I think that's my frustration. Like, bro, this is your fault because it's a masculinity and leadership conversation, and you trying to have a universal 50-50 conversation. So to me, when niggas be talking to me like, oh, you siding with the women, y'all be sounding like, not you per se, but they be sounding like feminists to me. Because I'm like, y'all want to hold equal accountability, bilateral and all of it. Bro, get your goofy ass out of here and just stand on your square and fix this shit from the top down, and then we can move forward.
Yeah. You got a point there. But it's more of here's the dilemma that I find with that most often. Because you're right, fixing it from within does not involve the women. But I take a more realistic approach to say the state at which the government and the laws, the power that it gave, or proxy power that it gave to women are usually the ones with the children. So that made it so you have to talk to them. Because my ultimate thing,
no, if you break the family up, but like your family, your shit is together, right? You're not worried about the state at all, right?
Oh no, yeah.
Like, we should be more so preaching to men to make sure that they put themselves in a situation where they don't worry about the state versus.
Oh, I preach that to men who haven't either one chosen. I definitely preach that to men who haven't chosen a wife yet, and men that are looking to get married and don't have any baby mamas or anything like that. That is my ultimate message, because you don't want to end up in that type of situation, and you got to choose a woman that believes what you believe is that align. Like, I think there are women out there, even in America, that will be like, I will die before I leave my children fatherless. When I heard a chick say that once, like, I will die before I leave my children fatherless. I'm never leaving my husband, no matter what. I was like, God damn, somebody grab her quick. There are still women like that out there. That's why I'm like, you just got to find them, bro.
And they got to have fathers in order for them to be like that. To value something, it's hard to value something you don't even understand the importance of.
Absolutely. Because people don't even realize that that's really what women stay with you for. A woman stays, sometimes a woman stays with you not only because of the family that you put around her. That's one, right? Because if my wife divorced me, she don't just lose me. You lose all these Nigerian outfits getting made for you. You lose all that shit. Like, she's never seen anything like my family. Like, when we get together at the parties, and she's like, God damn, they just all in your face trying to feed you, trying to help you, trying to watch your kids, trying to tie your hair. And she lose all of that. So it's not just me she's losing that. But then I love women that are tied to an ideal, tied to a value system. That's why we got to either put religion or at least a deep culture back into it, to where she knows, like, damn, I'm not going to be accepted into the society the same way if I leave this man. So, it's multiple access points or binding points holding her to the marriage. And that's what we need. Because if it's just you, you're going to make mistakes. You might lose your job for a few months. So, she has to be interested in more than just you to want to stay in the marriage.
It's bigger than just your relationship. Go ahead, AP. Yep. And then I want to go after you.
Okay. Just real quick, there's a comment in the comments where he says too many outside forces are impacting men. By the time they get home, they're too tired. I've got to say one thing to that. Quit making excuses as a man. That's part of the job. There's nothing that happens outside that makes you too tired to deal with what the hell is going on inside your home. Quit making excuses and do what you're supposed to do as a man. And I just wanted to go ahead and touch on that comment because it kind of struck me some kind of way, like, nah, bruh, I don't want to hear that shit. Quit making excuses. Be a man and own up to what you got to do and your responsibilities. Go ahead, Coach K.
Okay, no, that was good. I wanted to go back just a little bit to when we were talking about just what girls are wearing and just people in general and how they're presenting themselves. And I think what's interesting is that although the girls are dressing like they're more mature, like they're wearing makeup earlier, they're dressing more provocative earlier. But at the same time, if we look at statistics, kids are developmentally from mentally they're I lost my stat. They're delayed. So even though they present themselves as more mature, 18-year-olds are now acting like 15-year-olds. 13-year-olds are acting like 10-year-olds. So teens are physically safer than ever, but they're mentally vulnerable. And I think that's interesting. So on the outside, more they look, which I don't think any of us would agree that that's a good thing. Wearing makeup really young. I mean, even my niece, it's like, gosh, why are we pushing let her be a kid, I mean, none of us in my family, but on the inside and how they're growing up, they can't handle things as much, if that makes sense.
That
So.
has a lot to do with social integration. So a lot of their interaction is through social media. They're not really given a lot of responsibility, which helps mature you. Like I think about how we grew up. We were doing laundry for the family, cooking for the family, at a young age. So I think the physical developmental part is going to occur, especially now with the hormones and stuff that they have in the food. So physically, they're developing a lot earlier as well. But like you said, mentally wise, they are not, because they're not put in positions to give experience to develop the way that they should with critical thinking skills, things like that. Even playing in a park, I remember watching a study that was saying like things like different things that kids played in the park is no longer there because of safety issues. But they were saying how back in the day that taught them, critical thinking skills, things like that, which we've removed all of those things and we're trying to protect them so they're not developmentally, growing. And so that sexuality is what they're seeing, what they're, trying to emulate, especially like not just in high school, but I've seen it in middle school as well. And the parents are okaying this. And I think that's the part that I'm concerned with, is that kids are going to be kids. They're going to try to cross the line to see how far they can get. But if you as the parent don't have a line, then it's difficult for them to, navigate.
And to piggyback off what Mistaken is saying, even at school, like the dress code, I don't know where it is, how it is in any other, county, but the dress code, even at school, has just been, it just disappeared. It used to be so strict. When you go to church, like somebody was saying, church, when you go to church, you had a strict dress code. You had to dress a certain type of way. At school, you would think this, you send your kids to school and they have to dress a certain kind of way. But even we're seeing now that, it's like Freaknik in these hallways. I see it. Listen, if I see your skin, your complexion changing, going up your pants, like you start to see where it turns
booty cheek.
Right. The shorts are too short, but yet they're allowed to walk around with half shirts on, the short, that's just the way it is now. So there's no consequence on any level, even in a professional, because I consider that a professional.
Let me tell you something. When my wife said,
after you can go after.
I realized that too, where I said, well, let's move into a school district with very high GPA, because, that's all Nigerians care about, right? Then I said, oh, snap. Just because kids make good grades doesn't mean they always have good character or they're displaying things, right? And then I actually did that. I said, well, let's go check out what's going on. Let's go to a game or something and see what these parents are letting their kids wear. Exactly what you said. Like, why the hell are these girls out in coochie cutters? This is in high school, and their parents right next to them.
Sometimes it's in the wintertime. I'm like, girl, it's cold that? You don't feel that?
Yeah. So I had a rule. I said, my wife said, "Are we going to do private school?" I was like, "First, let's try charter school because that shit's expensive." All right. So we applied for basically a charter school that's better than the damn private school, outcomes wise, right? And the first thing I asked the lady, the principal lady, what is your dress code and your mode of enforcement for such things? This lady talked for 20 minutes straight. Not only do they wear uniforms, they can't wear anything without the name, the emblem embroidered into it. So they can't even sneak this type of stuff. Their hair can only be done a certain type of way. And she said, not only have we been doing this since the inaugural year of the school, this actually helps with outcome. When kids don't focus on beauty, when they don't focus on putting on their makeup, their educational experience is better, their grades are better. Nobody's picking, like, it's not one girl who's glammed out and now everybody wants to be like her. Everybody's on an even playing field.
Don't
So
learn fashion. I don't know fashion because of those schools. Like, I used to wear a uniform. Sorry, go ahead.
I loved it. And she's gonna be there from kindergarten this year till 12th grade, all grades. So I'm happy.
And there's length of skirt, and you had, like, I remember when you weren't, it wasn't good to wear leggings without something covering your butt. But now, I mean, even I'm guilty of that, of course, like, wearing like workout clothes or whatever. But I remember that, like, you couldn't do that.
You had to wear a long shirt. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yo, I twitching like that, Trigger Mike.
Huh? Oh,
yo, I was twitching when she was talking about the leggings. She was like,
I was looking through a scope or the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just to see if it was clear, I had to wipe it off with my shirt.
Go ahead, Inaz.
Yes, please let her go ahead.
Yeah. So I think you brought up a really good point earlier, Coach K. I know we've gone a little bit farther. I just wanted to backtrack. I don't think the kids are wearing makeup and doing that stuff earlier. I think that the fathers are not stopping it. I think children have always played with makeup from a very young age, but there was always a father there to be like, nope, give me that wipe that off. Or if you were allowed to play with it inside the house, right? But then that led me to this question now of, like, with single mother homes, is there like this dad guilt that men have where they're more tolerant towards behavior that they would be opposed to in order to keep the dynamic with the child more friendly?
Absolutely.
It's not only the child. So you're absolutely right. That's a part of it. But remember, the experience, we're not born with the male starter pack. Men have accountability measures across the board. If you do it in your own home, your own home, because the person who you're accountable to is going to hold you accountable for the outcomes of your own family. So that's what I'm saying, that since the community structure is gone of men, remember, men didn't have to consult with women on anything. They would consult with each other on what's best for their children and their overall community and run their homes that way because everybody was accountable to each other in that sense. So now the men only have the woman's feeling to be accountable to. Well, I don't want to be disliked by everybody. I don't want to be the person everybody says is a bad person. So I guess it's okay. Like that's very dangerous for men to do, and I think that's why we're saying that today.
To piggyback
too fast. Mike, can you look in the private chat, the back chat, please? Go ahead, Marcus.
To piggyback off of that, Mike, I think that what I was just describing with fathers not being there, feeling guilty, and then acquiescing to things to maintain a relationship with the child. I think that same dynamic occurs when men date women that they traditionally feel are out of their league, and they're trying to appease the woman because they know they can't draw a boundary because they feel as though she will leave, and that allows them to run rampant. So
I think the same with women, though. I think that they're trying to get men who are out of their league, and they feel like they're trying to
acquiesce to the man.
Yeah.
But I think that dynamic actually works because they played a video the other day where when women lose respect for a man, it's almost like the relationship has a termination date at the end of that, right? But if a woman is trying to appease the man, that relationship can last longer. Men typically respond well to women like completely because that's what like complete submission looks like in most men's mind, right? That whatever you're asking, whatever you're saying, she's gonna go along with it because she's on your program. So in that scenario, that's why like we not the same, right? So if a man is getting that type of treatment from the woman where she's doing any and everything he say, he'll typically reward that with more respect, with more love, with more care. If a woman is getting that, she'll typically disrespect him because she does not see him as like having a backbone or able to protect her because she's able to run over him. So other men would be able to run over him as well.
So I think I might be the only one on the panel, only male on the panel that's equipped to kind of touch on this a little bit. I don't, and this is back to Inaz's point. I'm curious what Marcus and Mike actually think of that kind of man, because I'm the dude that actually would pull up at the school. I'm the dude that my daughter sends me pictures of her clothes before they're bought. Like, so it's hard for me to understand being afraid of losing. Like, I don't understand how you want to how you gonna lose your kid if you're always participating the way you're supposed to as a man and as a father. Like, I can't wrap my head around that.
So I think it would happen with a couple different scenarios. One of which being if the parents got divorced and the kids get to choose which parent to live with, then you kind of have to engage in a I don't want to be the parent that you don't want to be around, because the kid now realistically has the power of choice to say I don't want to be around this parent, or they can cut you off and just become silent and only confide in the other parent. Like I've witnessed.
Well, see, that's the thing. I think a lot of times that's part of not like the man or even the one. I'm just talking about parent in general, is that they're scared to parent because they want to be friends with their kids. They want their kids to like them, and so they acquiesce to a lot of things related to what the kid wants instead of drawing boundaries and standing firm on that and being like, I don't care if you don't like me. I'm, Black Panther back there, but I'm not one of your little friends.
That only arrangement really works is if both parents are in the house, because you can have a good cop, bad cop when they're both in the house and the mother is reinforcing. If she's the good cop and you're the bad cop and she's reinforcing that your father is doing this for a reason. But if those two parents are fighting, especially in these nasty custody battles, she can run wild with that. And that child can grow up hating you. Like parental alienation is a real thing. So in your example, AP, that's excellent that you're able to maintain that boundary. But realistically, like, we lack emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and de-escalation tactics as a society, right? So you add that to the divorce or to the separation or to the relationship didn't end. Maybe she did want to be with you and you didn't want to be with her. You set yourself up to be in that situation where you will get parental alienation will occur, right? Because emotional regulation in men should be like the guiding principle within the household, right? And then that trickles down like trickle down economics. But if you're not within that household, there's no way for you to fully self-regulate and emotionally regulate everyone else within the household. And that's extremely dangerous. It's so dangerous for kids to be like, I mean, it can happen that they can be raised right in a single parent household, but that's a real gamble. That's a real gamble.
So we're gonna have Coach K go, and we have to move it on.
Okay, I'll be quick. That's so important what you said, Marcus, because kids, you can teach them, as soon as they're old enough to understand, what the heck you're talking about, but they watch you, especially with how you deal with anxiety. And it's important too. I mean, this is an understatement to have two parents, because if one parent, especially, the mom is a little more anxious, if that child has the dad to kind of like even, itself out, the kid at least can see both ways. The more I read about, because obviously I read this for, my teen clients, but just how much they learn from how their parents deal with stress and their anxiety, it's insane. So having both to kind of, balance those out is really crucial. So that's all I wanted to add.
I guess I got
Can
it.
you guys? We have to keep it going. Can you?
Okay, can I just add this one thing to what Coach
Okay,
K
and then we're
said?
gonna go to this, finish these super chats out and go because we're going.
So to piggyback off of what you said is so true, because I saw a commonality in the aspect of part of my job that I dealt with like developing 504 plans for students, is that a lot of times the student would have like anxiety or depression or something like that, but when the parent is in there and we were meeting, they would also confirm like, yes, I also have said, whatever the disability is. So I do believe that there's definitely some truth to that some of that is learned, learned behavior.
No. You gonna read the super chats? I want to say something.
Yes, let's go ahead. Can you click the super chats for? What was the next one?
Marcus Evans, $2. Trash music.
Second.
Okay, here it is.
Oh no,
Marcus
it wasn't.
Evans.
We didn't do.
We did that.
Did we do Sade?
We did that one.
Sade one. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Marcus Evans, appreciate the $2. Some women support the trash music. John the Baptist, $2. Organized religion had no authority.
That I have to disagree with, because I think that regardless of which religion you were in, and I'll say specifically in America, I think Christianity is the dominant religion. But I definitely know, like back in the day, that even if you didn't go to church, like I remember being in church and parents used to drop their kid off at church, even if they didn't attend church, because it was a safe place for their kid to be while they were out running the street on Sunday.
I don't think that's the reason why. It's probably because they didn't want to attend, but they knew the value of preaching, understanding the values of going to church. They wanted their child to have a because who runs the streets on Sunday morning?
Crackheads.
You've been to
for crackheads. Listen, but how many people are crackheads?
There's a lot of crackheads.
Where I grew up, it was a lot. It was a lot. But it was a safe place. But I think as a whole that was part of the societal culture to be a part of an organized religion. After a while, of course, it started that began to change. But organized religion absolutely, I believe, had authority.
You also got to factor this in.
These super chats cannot turn into long conversations.
Okay. I'm done.
I'm not trying to be on here with y'all. All
right, go ahead.
You know. Okay. Get to the next video. Oh, thank you guys all for the super chats. Okay.
Like with a W, like I'm a whore.
But define that though.
Like I'm a whore.
Go ahead, Shay.
What if Summer comes to you as pretty as she is and says, "Mom, I want to be a city girl"?
She ain't gonna be no city girl.
So Summer ain't allowed to be no city girl?
No. I want her raised totally different. Like, I don't even want her to even see the light of day like that. Like, I really want her to just be like, like level-headed, a schoolgirl, and just on a whole nother ways. Like, I kind of was raised different, so I don't want to raise her up how I was raised. Mm-hmm. So, I'm a city girl, ain't nothing wrong with it, but I don't want that for my daughter. Like with a W, like I'm a whore.
But define that, though.
Throw them all away in the trash.
Okay, so this is going back to what I think Enos was trying to bring this point up about the video. So you can go ahead now that we've seen the video, Enos, if you still had your point that you were trying to make with the video.
So I made my point, but I'll reiterate it for the sake of the conversation. Like, you can't say that you don't know that what you're doing is wrong and not want it for your own children, right? Like there's like an intellectual conflict in the way that you're behaving, what you're promoting, and that it's cool for you and for other people, but it's not cool for your children. I think that the whole leading by example thing, that happens whether it's intentional or unintentional.
But do you think that that's just what people do, especially because let's just be honest, most people before us got rich off of somebody else's back by doing somebody dirty, okay? And so, or doing something that we would deem to be, just not a good thing.
Exploitation, right?
Right.
Exploitation.
So
Don't get Marcus
it just so
started, please.
happens in this moment we're talking about sexual activity, So I think that that's just what people, you always want your kids to be better than you are. You can recognize that I'm doing things wrong, but I do want my children, and I want my children to follow me. I do it for them, so they don't have to do what I did. Like, you guys ever heard that? Not necessarily. Just take
Well,
sex out of it.
I would
But
say
most-
that. Go ahead.
just take the sex out of it. You've never heard parents say that, like, I do what I do so that you don't have to do what I'm doing.
Wait, what? So that's a bit confusing. So, if I understand that, I've heard people say that, of course, but the person who's saying it has already made changes in their life to be the exemplar for their child. So you can freely say, listen, I used to be a city girl. I was out here running the streets. And in order to show my daughter better, I have changed my life around so she does not have this road. She is young. What is her name? Young Miami is fully immersed in city girl culture still till this day. So she, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your statement. I'm sorry. And then let me go, right? Because I have a question for you. Go ahead, Mike. I don't want to.
I was done.
Okay. So my question is this, though. Look at the grand scheme of things. And I'm not taking up for her because I don't even know the city girls like that. This young lady just keeps popping up on my, whatever. I don't. But my question is, so I see the dilemma a little bit. The problem is when somebody's throwing money in your face and this is your bread and butter. You understand? It's almost like you have to choose. Do I leave all of this alone and go back to being poor? Because I don't even know what what else she can do, what her other talent is. I'm pretty sure she has some, I guess. Or do I continue to do this and just teach my kid, like, hey, this isn't right, but unfortunately, this is what's bringing in, the money so that we can live a certain lifestyle and probably get out of what we were before. Because she clearly said, too, in there, her mom, she wasn't raised that way. Her parents raised her totally different, so she doesn't want to raise her kids the same way her parents raised her. So I was just wondering what your thoughts on that is.
I'm gonna just say this part real quick, and I don't know Inaz wants to go next. There are the people who have tried to separate those two things and think that they can do the job and not have it affect their children. It's never worked out in their favor. It never works.
I agree with that.
Is she married? I'm just curious. I don't know anything.
I'm just saying, people dropping the bag. Y'all listen.
She's one of Diddy's women.
The bag on you. If you're going out in this job and morally it's just not good for your kids to see that happening, but you're not really taking your clothes off, you're just doing something unethical. Let's just say, not unethical. Well, I guess
immoral, maybe.
Immoral. You're doing something of that nature. Are you gonna stop if it's legal? Imagine the money, and that's your bread and butter. That's your claim to fame. So think about it like this. Think about the 2 seconds. I'm sorry, Miles. Think about it like this. How is it any different if you are a movie star and you're butt naked in a scene and you letting a guy, and now your child has to see you get tossed? Even if it's an A1 film, the fact of the matter, I just saw my mom get grabbed up by a man, even though she's acting, and just to grind on. So I think that we have a way of the same stuff, but just making it classier when it's in a certain environment and opposed to another environment. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Imani.
I hear what you're saying. To me, it doesn't make sense, right? Because here's the thing: is when it's an actress, it's not even her role; it's part of that role. And there's a whole typically body of work where that is the exception to the rule and not the only thing that they're promoting, right? And when it comes to these, because we're talking about the women right now, when it comes to these women who do that musically, I see them the same way that I look at some of the younger guys that go into professional sports, right? They think this is their only avenue, this is the money, and if I don't keep doing it, I run out. They don't set themselves up for success to exit. They don't have an exit strategy, right? When we look at the Rihannas of the world and the other artists that were doing something similar, they were able to set up other businesses, other income so that they didn't have to keep doing it. People have been begging Rihanna for an album for like a decade now, and she won't do it, right? Because she no longer has to rely on the music industry and the way that she was selling herself in that way to do it. I think that it's a bit of a cop out. If you really don't want to set that example, then you have to figure an exit strategy. And whether you tell your children, I did this so that we can survive and we can eat and we can maintain this lifestyle, they don't process that. They imitate what they see as an example, and the first example is the parents.
And they know it. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen when I was in the mental health, like somebody said it here, during the family therapy sessions, it's almost as if the kid was loading it up and had it in their clip the whole time, where the mom is saying, you know, her part, and I don't want you to do blank and I want you to be better. Well, you did it because you were doing blank when you left dad. And they wait their whole lives to let you know that what you did gives me license to do what I'm doing. Kids are not dumb. They hold that in the clip for the biggest thing possible, right? Whether it's getting pregnant young or, well, you did it, I don't see what's wrong with me. You know, that is pretty much solidified in a fact in history. You know, single mom will breed another single mom. A teen mother will breed another teen mother. You know, we see these outcomes being repeated. So if you actually want to stop it, like Enon said, you have to formulate an exit strategy. And I also believe that you should not hide it. Right? My father-in-law was a crackhead in the 80s. Okay, he does not hide that. He is a pastor now. Right? He lets people know that he was not there for his daughters during the crap epidemic. He was wrong, and a lot of the deficits they have. This is why he came to us as their husbands, right? Like, look, some of the stuff they have going on, that's my fault. If they're a little compatible, that's my fault. I wasn't there. I was raised to the rock. So I don't have to be extra hard on them. I'm hard on them now, but you know, so it's like, you know, you got to really choose that lead. That's sad, really, to hear, because I feel for the baby girl.
Your mic is messed up, Trigger Mike.
Oh, okay.
It's fine now.
Okay. She's gonna be singing that her booty hole's brown in about 10 years. That's all I can say.
3.
Sometimes it can be the opposite, though. Sometimes
rarely.
Sometimes people do the opposite of what their parents do.
You know? Well, you know what? You know what it is, though, Shan. I used to think people were inherently good.
Not today. I don't know what's going on.
That's not. It's not that people.
Listen.
People are inherently good to the point where they don't want to bring physical harm to the point of deletion to other people. But people are actually inherently mischievous when given the choice to do what is stable versus and boring versus what is exciting. They will choose what is stimulating and exciting, right? So think about it. A young person faced with that choice and an excuse because her mom did it, they're 99% of the time gonna make the wrong choice.
I think it's interesting. Oh, sorry, Chad. I think it's interesting how when she was talking about how she wanted her daughter to show up, she said how she didn't want her, to be like a city girl. But then like finding the words to what the alternative, I thought that was interesting.
Well, I don't think she knows. She didn't grow up. She clearly said that she didn't grow up that way. Maybe she's trying to find that herself. She grew up in a different, so she seems a little confused. She just knows that she doesn't want her child to end up like her.
Well, because what would we all say? I mean, and I'm not even gonna knock her for it. Like, what would we say is the opposite of a city girl? Like, what if we had to say like 2 words or something like that?
Church girl.
Yeah,
Church
like
girl.
classy, classy
Seriously.
girl. I don't know. I just thought it was
Wait.
Church
interesting.
girl.
So I heard church girl twice now,
Yeah.
but is there not a reputation
There's
amongst
a connotation
church
to
girls?
that.
I
Yeah,
have
like
been waiting
farmer's
for
daughter
years.
type, or pastor's
I have been
daughter.
waiting for years to make this distinction. Good girls do reside in church. And let me not even say good girls. I didn't even want to say that. Women who not even aren't morally corrupt, that understand morality. Let me just say that. You can come down on a church girl about what is right and what is wrong and get the appropriate response you're supposed to get from a woman. I'm telling you right now, this myth that church girls are nasty and bad, it is exacerbated. Here's why. Ain't nobody nastier and doing more stuff than Keisha from the hood. Him from church is not doing the same thing exactly. It's the fact that she is in the church. So we do this thing where we're like, ooh, you know you're not supposed to be doing this. Ooh, you kissed him and let him grab your titty. Ooh. So it's like we put this moral clause on church girls to say you're not supposed to be doing any of this. But in my experience, you will get that hand to the chest from Kim at church, like, all right. We're moving too fast. But Keisha from the hood, flobbing you down at 16. The knob and everything. Nobody's nastier than the girls who are outside. It's not the church girls that are nasty. They still have some morality left in them. Keisha ain't got no damn morals.
So I completely disagree, Trigger Mike, because I lost my virginity in a threesome with two girls from the church. So
all right, you disgusting, man.
That was your first experience, Marcus?
God damn.
Listen, you cannot say all church. We're not saying all.
We're not saying all church.
In the grand scheme of things.
The question was, what was the opposite? So I'm gonna say ideally church girls. That would be the polar opposite to what a city girl would be.
Absolutely not.
That's what I'm saying. Ideally, it's supposed to be.
So, okay, so I know the question was, well, what does that look like? You know, and so I had to have Trigger Mike upload this video because I thought it was very informative and it kind of sums up the entire conversation what we're doing now. Because the question is, well, what do you do if you have children and you don't want your kids to be, influenced? Because guess what? It's everywhere. So you can be great in a household, but like Miss Aiken said, when they walk into school, sometimes those outfits change. She'll come with a hoodie on. She walked out the house with the hoodie on because you were at home. And then when she walks in the door, she goes straight to the bathroom. That hoodie comes off, and all of a sudden now she's in a midriff. That's how kids, that's how y'all's kids are acting at school, okay? But I wanted to play this video because I thought it was very informative.
With your child's life, by where you chose to live, than by anything you will ever do inside that home. Short of abuse, neglect, or malnutrition, the rest of it is just trivial variation. It's where you live. Why? Because out-of-home influences are more powerful in shaping the life course of your child than in-home influences are. And those out-of-home influences are peer groups, other adults, neighborhoods, resources, schools, and the larger community that you made available to this child. That is how you shape your child's life course. The second biggest influence is also out of your hands, and that's genetics. And you don't get to determine that. Now, do not mistake what I'm saying. The knowledge your child possesses, what they know, is clearly a function of exposure in the environment. But their traits, their abilities, their makeup, their personality is not.
So I've been saying that the last few weeks. I've been saying that. So that seems like a pretty old video. But the way they're saying it now is the biggest predictor of your child's future income level is the zip code you raised them in, which is saying the same thing.
Basically, the same because they're a product of their environment, so to speak.
Yep.
Well, don't forget the success sequence. Real
So,
quick,
Marcus,
and I'll
the
pass
next
it to
time you
Marcus.
ask me why I don't live in the hood, I'm gonna send you this video.
And I completely disagree with this video. For this reason, right? And just follow this logic.
Here we go.
Just follow this logic. Just follow this logic.
Here we go.
So the people that live in the neighborhoods that have traditionally the worst outcomes, right? They usually have a specific dynamic of the parents, right? So those usually are single parent homes because the income requirements and all those other things for them to stay in those neighborhoods or not to be able to leave if they wanted to leave usually dictate single parent homes. So those people would probably be working and those kids would be left to the greater community to wander and get in all type of trouble. And the influence of those type of families, I could see that happening. And the reason that I'm using it and saying it, because I've seen it I was talking to Inaz about this earlier, and almost all the people from my neighborhood like either got killed, went to jail for murder, or had drug cases in a large amount, except for the ones that my grandfather that came up under his umbrella. Every man that came up under that umbrella was in the midst of chaos. They all had similar outcomes. Like none of them are in jail. None of them are dead. None of them don't make any money. None of them so I think that's more of it's what do you say now? Is causation doesn't what was the term?
Not correlation.
Yes,
Correlation doesn't.
Because I think that the bigger indicator with that would be actually what does go on in the home. Because for those people who continually have those traditional outcomes, those families are broken. And if you put an intact family, so if you take a single mom who's going to work all day and put her kid in the most affluent Beverly Hills suburb, right? Yeah. And you take a child with both parents and you raise them in the worst neighborhood possible, I think that the child with both parents will have better outcomes than the child.
We're saying the same thing.
We're not disagreeing with that.
No. But we're saying the same thing, Marcus, because we're actually looking at it this way. There is a low representation of two-parent households in the lower income community, and in my community, there's 6,000 homes here. I don't know everybody, of course, but the large majority of you cannot really find a single parent home here, right? So we're really just saying the same thing. Now, you remove the man out of that household, you will have those outcomes that we talked about. The outcomes of the children will be significantly different, but that's far less likely to happen in this demographic group. And I think, Shan, you gave an example some weeks ago saying that people who have higher income stay together. They tend to stay together way longer. So yeah, I think we're saying the same thing essentially.
The other thing, though, too,
I'm still not moving to the hood, though. I'm still not moving to the hood.
I'm not. I know you're not.
The other thing, too, kind of like what Marcus was saying, is I think with that clip, while I agree with it, there's a caveat to that, because I also think the biggest influence that you're going to have at your kids is in the earlier years when you're setting and establishing that foundation. So by the time that they get to the age where their outside environment and friends influence, there are certain things that you have already cultivated in them and established, that even if they go against the grain, that is this fight, I'll say, within them from what they know that they were taught versus what they're doing outside of what they were taught. Like, I know, like, our family, we grew up in a church, they was in a church all the time, and we lived in the hood. So that's why I could say we were in the hood, but not of the hood, because we weren't allowed to be. Like, we didn't have that option. So our experience with what we were taught outside of our home was when we were able to go outside for a little while, or sneak outside while they were at work and then try to hurry up and run upstairs before they got home because we wasn't supposed to be outside, or like cursing and stuff. We weren't allowed, like we couldn't say fart, things like that. But when we got outside, we was, letting it rip, like saying everything we couldn't say. But then when we got inside, we knew we couldn't. So I think it's a lot of establishing that foundational aspect before you actually go into the world, because now you have this dual situation of what you were taught were right, but you're fighting against it to kind of find yourself. And that's where I think the influence part,
and the piggyback off of that mistake.
Go real fast, and then we're gonna go to Nas, and then I have some I want to add to that.
So like, it's so like, all right, I didn't have the same parental directly in the house as some of the other kids, right? So you knew the ones whose parents, they couldn't even come outside and hang out with us like all night, do all of that stuff. Like when we moved to another neighborhood. Now, if you go to college, right, the easiest girls to like have one night stands with are either the ones who are already going or the ones who have no idea what's going on. They kind of green to the whole scenario of dating. So that was to piggyback off your point and just point out some nuances in there.
So I disagreed with the video. I understand the whole part about environment and all of that stuff, but I think from what I have looked at, I think the biggest differentiating factor of success is independent thought, critical thought. If you are not able to confidently think critically and think for yourself, most children, whether it's a single parent household or a two-parent household, are taught compliance.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they comply as long as they're under the thumb of whoever has the consequences of complying. And the moment that thumb is lifted, they start to do things that's counter to what they're taught. Whereas when you instill the value of thinking for yourself and moving from your own moral compass, right? Those children don't tend to waver. And when you're unwavering in what your goals are, you find success. I totally disagree with everything that was said in the video.
So are you, my question, so you're saying, Inaj, you don't think your environment has anything to do with the way that you think and how you move?
I think your environment has as much effect on you as you allow it to.
Well, of course. I mean, obviously, that's
when you get to a certain age, though.
So let me. The reason why I asked that is because I have another question on top of that. If that's the case, there are a lot of things. Let's step outside of this what we're talking about now. A lot of people today, whether we're talking about sexually, they're moving in an immoral type of way. Whether we talked on this show before, manipulation, even just when it comes to dating, that you would think if you had a foundation and you were raised right, you wouldn't want to intentionally hurt another person. You wouldn't want to take get this guy for all of his money, or you wouldn't want to use the woman just because of sex or mislead her because of sex, because that too is how you think your character, your foundation. But because it's so normal now, people are accepting like it's okay because of the environment. We've made it normal.
So I hear what you're saying, Shan, but here's the point I'm getting at, right? Yes, it's normal. Yes, a lot of people are doing it, but a lot of people don't exercise independent thought or critical thinking. And those that do are the ones who find successful relationships, right? Whether they come from a single parent household where it wasn't modeled for them, or they come from a two-parent household where it was modeled for them. If you're able to say, okay, this is normal, but it's not for me, you're going to find success in what you're looking for.
Yeah, but so I still think he's right. The video is right. Because what you're saying is absolutely correct, but it's the environment that cultivates that. It's the environment that cultivates the opportunity for independent thought. So this happens a lot. So if we're talking about community, the community in higher income areas is not destroyed. I've really just found it kind of creates itself. I was at a birthday party last week and they were like, "Oh, your boy's going to big school now. Isn't he going to the Spanish immersion program in this elementary school?" And I was like, "Oh, well, my wife tried to hit the lady. I thought they were full." She's like, "No, I can get you in and I can keep the kid. I can take him home from school and back to the Spanish school." And that type of community is what I'm realizing that, oh, this is a lot different than A-Leaf, where I came from, which is, a suburban version of the hood inside of Houston, where everybody mind their own business. They don't help you. They don't talk to you. You know what I mean? It's get your kid out the street. Like nobody look out for you. So it's like these people are here creating opportunities for independent thought, talking to your child when you're not there, asking if they can help with the homework, asking if your child can come play with their child. So it's a lot more opportunity for that in higher income areas, whereas it's almost no opportunity, and or the parents are very protective over their children in lower income communities.
You know, I there's a quote that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. It's
Mhm.
almost like that. Think about outside of the room, just the environment, the people you want your kids to hang around, the type of the social atmosphere you want your kid to be a part of. Like it's such a bigger,
Like
you
big
know,
fish or big pond or big fish in the pond or whatever.
right.
That
Just
kind
even
of
the kids,
thing.
the kids your kids have access to, the things they learn, the expose, it's just a little, and don't get me wrong, that can come with some problems too. But I do, and I'm not to say that if you're in a neighborhood like, a neighborhood that's not affluent, then obviously, it's not saying that your child is not going to be successful. We're not saying that at all. We're just saying to get a better outcome, you may want to move where your child is raised does play a role on how they see the world, how they interact, who they interact with, blah blah blah.
So, Shan, I'm so glad you brought up that saying, right? Because, like, I have a huge point of contention with that saying because it demonstrates two things. One, it's a level of arrogance that you feel like you can't learn from people that you feel like you're smarter than. But the other issue with that statement about if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room is that takes resources, like in terms of brain power, away from communities that need it most. And they wind up doing what Trigger Mike was talking about and secluding themselves in like-minded people. So what happens is you create this constant funnel where like the hood, the ghetto, however you want to attribute it to, is losing the assets and not cultivating it within the community.
Yeah.
What about that person though? Like, let's take that student. Now I know Shan and Miss Taken can speak to this. But if that student isn't, because obviously we can apply this to so many different contexts, but if that student isn't being challenged, aren't they kind of being held back in a way, because then they're not going to be engaged because it's boring or whatever. But also too, and I do agree with you that you can learn something, but are you also being from, when you're older, are you being complacent though too, because where you're not challenging yourself, or yeah, that's all I was going to say to that.
So I think active parents will always identify if their child needs to be challenged academically, because you would be involved in understanding the dynamic of that. And there are opportunities that present themselves that may not be. So I agree with one point about what you said, Trigger Mike, that the network regarding that another community may have a larger vast of opportunities just readily available, right? And I'll give you that. But if your children would be in a situation where they wouldn't like necessarily be the normal to have those opportunities, they always get presented if the child is in that position. They got grants, they got all type of stuff for those kids to keep, you know what I'm saying, to challenge them and push them to the next sphere of thinking, or just education wise. So I think the girl Chanel was talking about that one day, how there were all of these grants that nobody applied for, and or all of these programs that nobody applied for from the neighborhood she was raised in. I think she said in New York. But because she was focused on education and her parents uh, were adamant about that, it's how she garnered the success she did education wise, which goes back to my larger point. It's really on the parents' activity with those children, as opposed to just expecting osmosis to create the ideal outcomes you want. Because a lot of times, if you look at if that was the case, if you look at immigrant families, right, the first generation of immigrants usually have the propensity to have successful children, right?
Yep.
Those successful children should then be elevating to the next level. But what we traditionally see is after 2 generations, people regress.
Yep, they do.
And the question is why? And I think that people adapt the osmosis mentality as opposed to, I seen in the chat somebody said strong men create easy times create weak men, and weak men create strong times. I think there's something in that has to be dissected in order to extrapolate the real formula to create successful children. And I don't think osmosis is.
No, it's actually, it makes perfect sense to me why this happens. So even though we talk about the Elon Musk, the Zuckerbergs, they create comfort for their children. Too much comfort to the point where The immigrants are actually a better example because what they do, let's say, is in most of these cultures, they are very adamant about teaching everything they know with immediate effect to their children so they can succeed. When the target is good family, the children succeed. When the target is creating good children, but then when the target becomes success, that's when you have the fall off because focusing on success takes you out of the home and takes your attention away from the children. That's why the most successful men in America are the worst fathers in America, right? Elon Musk lives at work. He lives in the building at Twitter. He is not around his children. How on earth can we say that a billionaire's child wants to emancipate themselves? Last year, one of Elon Musk's children emancipated themselves from him, right? How could you possibly create that environment for your child to where you would want to emancipate from a billionaire? So they focus on the success and not the family itself, and that is where they really get away from it. So if you're going to do it culturally, and where I do see you do have a point where if it is a father in the close to the hood or hood adjacent that is around his kids trying to give them culture, they will be the ones who are rich in culture. There will, because he's in the home teaching it and instilling it. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen as much as, in the other higher socioeconomic groups. Because once people get money, they want to get out the hood.
So this one I want to just clarify something real fast. This is not to say that you have to be in a rich neighborhood. The environment can be okay. Maybe you're in a lower middle class, but all of you guys have the same thought process. Like, maybe it's a bunch of older people, or you're just good family homes. Having a good, solid family home doesn't necessarily mean you're rich or you got a certain amount of money. It could just be the mindset of the people in the neighborhood or in your environment. Does that make sense? I think we always put money on it, and it's about what you value. And if you have a whole community, no matter what their income is, and you have great values, and your kids are around that, your kids will develop those as well.
I think that's what's key, I think, because success, and even on YouTube, like people always go to money, but I think, obviously only a handful of people can really be, the 1% or whatever, but also too, a lot of people who, let's say, just make six figures come from very humble beginnings, come from the bottom, which I think kind of shows, how anyone can, it just depends. It's very complicated, but go ahead, Marcus.
So to piggyback off of that, and so my viewpoint is shaped from a very unique perspective because I'm from North Lawndale, but I also lived in Oak Park, right? And I also went to college, but I also had to live through a gang war. But I also played basketball, so I also seen that. So I've had a window to almost every socioeconomic group that exists in America, like almost every last one, from the 1% to the negative, to the worst percentage. And looking through that, I'm combing through it, and I say, okay, so the kids who, especially black kids, who grew up in the suburbs, have identity crises. So they try and emulate hood behavior. So those kids will regress to fit in with the norm, or they'll disassociate themselves from being black and then have issues based off of that, right? And then these kids that grew up in the hood, they'll gravitate towards this collective bullshit that occurs out there and be actively involved in trying to gangbang. But when they add the father aspect to it, you remove that, and those kids have a drive and a desire and more steadfastness and responsibility than the other group of kids, because they actually see what could happen if you don't succeed in the way that they would like, and then they push themselves further. Then these kids are given everything and feel like life is terrible because they want the love of their parents. They don't receive it. So because they don't have that, they lash out and get into heavy drug usage. And they usually like end up in rehab multiple times over and over because they're trying to solve for the love they never received from their parent. Like on the extremes, it's always extreme negatives can occur on those extremes. But like looking through all of these different communities, I try and pull out what works, right? And I have, like I said, I have a very unique perspective because I like dissect people's psychology behind the things they do or the things they do, right? And what I'm pulling from that is what's shaping my theory on this.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of a book that I had to read in school, but it also happened. He grew up, I mean, north of Cincinnati, but J.D. Vance, who's now a senator, but he was born in Appalachia, but his grandparents adopted him. His parents were pieces of crap and stuff like that. But so he, in that book, I think I had to read it for like sociology of the family or something like that. And just seeing how it reminds me of what you just said, Marcus, and seeing the differences. But what was crucial was his grandma and his grandpa and the values that they instilled in him, because he easily could have fallen, you know, into just these different groups, from whether it's where he came from or Middletown, Ohio, which is, I mean, it's not the best area either, but yeah, I think there's a lot of dynamics. And the only thing I wanted to add too was I liked what, you know, I said about the independent thought, because I think that's something that's missing. But, and someone says in the chat, North Cincy's the hood. I wouldn't, if you look at Middletown, Ohio, it's not the best. But anyway, sorry, that caught my eye for Cincy. But so in addition to independent thought, I think that that's important. People are not thinking critically. They can't think for themselves. But I think to go further, it's what that's rooted to. Because if you're thinking independently in a group of, let's say, moral people, I don't know, well, is that a good thing or not? So it's like, what are your roots? What are your values? What are your morals? What are your priorities? And hopefully those were instilled in you. So then when you are thinking independently, you know right from wrong, if that makes sense. But that's all I wanted to add.
Just to add a little bit, I agree completely with Marcus and Enos. I'm done.
One of the things that I was going to say too about the independent thought is that I definitely that is needed and it is lacking, but I still also think having independent thought doesn't necessarily mean that you don't succumb to influence as well, because part of the other thing as humans, we are social beings. So even when you're like, I'm not going to follow the sheep, that you always find a set of other sheep that think like you as well. So you're always going to seek a group, because that's just part of our nature, is to find groups of people that are like us. So even when you have independent thought, you're going to be seeking other groups that are in alignment with that thought, and there is going to be a level of influence. The key is to find the groups that are going to have the positive influence, on you. And I think that's part of what that there's lacking, is that you have in mass people that are following groups that are not necessarily having a positive influence. Like everybody's just seeking to be so different. Like, I don't want to be like everybody else. So they're, wanting to be, I'm a cat or whatever, like those kind of things, just seeking to be so different, that is like, because everybody's doing this, I'm going to be different. So I'm going to do this. And then you find another, oh, well, yeah, I want to do that too. And so it's not necessarily a positive influence. But even with independent thought, part of that is, how can I get better? What else can I do? So some of that is your own independent self-knowledge, studying things like that, but also seeking out others who may know things that can put you on. So I don't think there's anything wrong with influence. It's just knowing the right type of influence.
That reminds me.
Do y'all ever think like these young people, like imagine all the traditional people are going to be aging out of, politics, they're getting older. And now this new generation, they're going to be leading the country. Like,
that's terrifying.
So they will shift
Tide Pod generation.
Their mindset of their mindset will shift. It's happened every time they've gotten of age. Once you hit about 45, your mindset shifts. But just real quick, Mistaken reminded me of another reason why I completely disagreed with the guy in the video. Uh, I believe that yes, your your environment does have a lot to do, a huge influence on you as an individual. However, I think that it's the parenting or lack of parenting that helps guide you through the decision making processes as you're trying to figure out through which one of these groups you want to deal with, as Mistaken was saying, or or exactly what choices you make. I believe like my goal is always to be has been to be the voice in my children's head. So whenever they're making a decision, they hear my voice saying, "Okay, no, that's stupid, dude." Or no, Chica, that's not a good idea. Like I'm serious. So if we as parents are as active in the lives of our children as we need to be, I believe that our influences are much greater than anything that the environment or the neighborhood that you live in or the school that you go to could ever be. Just an opinion. Now, don't get me wrong. You do have kids that are that are just bad as hell. Out, outside of that, I think that it's more the parents' influence or lack of influence
Mm-hmm.
that that kind of dictates the way a child will move. I just disagreed with that video completely.
So I have a question. So let's step out the new question because we've been on the women all night. Now it's time to talk about, and this is for whatever reason on the internet. Listen, if I offend anybody in the chat, I apologize. We're not talking about you. Um, this is a conversation that I think is very people don't like to talk about this, and I don't know if people are scared or what. Again, if you're listening to this, I'm not talking about you. Um, we don't give enough attention. We never talk about the men, like the men on the streets, the sagging pants, the wife beater, durag guy slanging down the street. Like nobody gives that attention because this is the thing. Two women hunching on each other ain't never killed nobody. But saying something to the wrong person has. I mean, it's something as small as just, I remember when I was growing up, it was like something about somebody stepped, took somebody's moon pie. I didn't even know what a moon pie was, and then lost his life, or stepping on somebody's sneakers, loss of life. Or, not too long ago, we have two malls here that are affluent malls, and it's just a shootout in the food court with kids and family members. Like, what's going on? Like, how do we change that? Because I know one is important, of course, because we want, the women, and maybe these are the women who are producing this type of, behavior, whatever. But what I think it looks bad because a few people are making the entire, I don't know. I don't know how to really articulate what I'm trying to say here, but why do we never address that? Because
if y'all didn't love Pookies, we wouldn't ever have to address it because that's the bottom. That's the dredge of our of black men's society. We could give two shits about those dudes. We think, like the way I see it, I believe that I think women make poor choices in who they decide to mate with far too often.
Oh, so you think that is your mating, and then the kids come out to be just like the person, the father? Is that what you're saying?
You mate with a Pookie, you go end up with a Pookie kid.
So I have a lot of serious pushback for that, right? Because we just finished talking about people who don't leave those communities. And so if you're choosing from the best option of that community, and then there's a brain drain in that community, what do you have left to choose from, right? Like, I think that's not a fair statement. And I think discarding them as if they're not human beings is not fair either. Are they detrimental to society? Absolutely. But I think we need to address what the actual issue is and stop like throwing them away, because they're still people and they're still a part of our community, right? I think, at least from the way that I see things, there's a whole lot of like complex trauma that people are struggling with, right? I'd heard one psychologist kind of talk about the men who move like that, especially the boys, right? Is this idea of not wanting to be seen. Don't look too closely because then you're going to see all of the trauma on me. And so it's this expression of like hyper masculinity that goes into like that toxic masculinity conversation in order to feel worthy of respect. Right? And so when we can address that and provide a safer environment for people to unpack things and learn a different way of exercising masculinity that's more productive, I think that'll be different. And I think that goes to what we were saying earlier, that it goes back to having fathers in the home, because when you have a man who can show you the example of what that looks like, then that gets replicated over and over again. But when you remove the man, you have a bunch of boys growing up with women understanding like the way you're teaching me to be a man is not, it doesn't feel right. And so I'm going to revolt against it, because Marcus talked about how masculinity is a rebellion. They rebel against what they're taught and kind of take this path.
Okay, so as a young man who took school extremely serious, until it became evident that I was going to be something of a ball player, so to speak, chicks wasn't hollering at me because I wasn't a baller. I wasn't the dude that was, on the side making money. Like that. That's not who I was. So there are other options in the hood. Women love these Pookies and these Ray Rays. So when we say that it's not fair, shit, these hoes be skipping over regular ass dudes that are living in these situations, that are looking for a way out, and they end up with what they end up with. Like, of course it's not fair. I mean, I could say, hey, it wasn't fair for me. Nobody really wanted to date me until I went to college. Well, actually, the white girls did, but that was a whole different animal. I'm just saying, like, we can't say that they don't have any options when there are options. They don't take those options because those guys aren't the ones that's out on the corner balling with a little bit of pocket change. I'm just saying.
How is that an excuse? But we use the same logic when it comes to women being half dressed. Those women are being chosen as well. Those women are the women who are getting the attention. It's the same thing both ways. Men give women who are over sexualizing themselves a lot of attention. Women may give Mr. Guy on the street a lot of attention and overlook the good. Everybody, all the good people are getting overlooked.
I'm glad you brought that up, because my opinion is it is these Pookies and these Charlises that are making up the entire damn hood. Like, I think they're mating. The truth of the matter is, I think they're mating with each other. So when we see this foolishness out in the hood, right? When we see this out there, it's Pookie and Pookisha that's made a baby that Pookie is not going to be there for. He's going to find himself another Pookisha to make another baby, and it's going to be this perpetual cycle that continues to happen. It's just going to become circular. I'm sorry. I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. Y'all go ahead.
No, you're fine. So I think, like, because I hear this whole choosing thing and like decision thing all the time, and I think we overlook like the illusion of choice. I think if we dig a little bit deeper into that, then it's not as simple as you're choosing the wrong person. One, you have people who are dealing with like severe fight or flight every day. Like, people are out here struggling to survive, right? So what choices you have, what choices you're presented, are very different to you than they are to somebody who doesn't have to worry about where they're going to sleep or where their next meal is coming from. The second part to that is that when we say, these Pukishas and these Pookies and Ray Rays are overlooking the average person, do we really factor in the fact that they're not actually equipped to have a healthy relationship with those people? And things like self-sabotage come in, things like separation comes in. Like, those two people don't actually fit together, so you're going to wind up getting with somebody who you do fit with. And unless you're providing people the tools to do better and be better, they're going to constantly make the same decision because that's the only viable choice that they have. It's not really a choice to pick somebody healthy. It's not going to work.
True. That's a good point. Anybody want to?
I agree.
I don't so good. I don't even know what to say. I'm like,
yeah. Back off of what she
So
said.
what you basically said is we're all screwed either way.
Not necessarily, but I think she was saying we need to like normalize teaching the skills to cope, to be able to, like what I was talking about earlier, conflict resolution.
Of course, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Right.
But
and
do people really want to learn, Marcus? Do they really want to learn?
The other thing is, like what she was saying too, is also about exposure and access. So if all you are exposed to and all you have access to are the other people that are in your environment, is not that Pukisha just keeping overlooking everybody else and choosing a Pookie. It's just more Pookies to choose from in the environment that she's in. And so in that regard, you can't be like, oh, she chose a Pookie when she only has access to a Pookie.
Well, you know what? I think that might be an overrepresentation. There are, because I grew up, damn, this is weird. Leaving New York, that was the hood. But after that, I grew up hood adjacent. I always lived in that. My parents did just well enough so I could grow up poor around white people. You heard Dave Chappelle say that? So I was always like hooded in that neighborhood that was right next to the hood before you get to the white community, right? And one of the things that I noticed is that AP was kind of right. There are a lot of dudes that get overlooked simply because they're unwilling to get into the gang activity and all of that. Because it's not just the access to them that's a part of it. Yes, it's the appeal of these men. The entire culture is based around those guys being the coolest guys in the neighborhood. So there are dudes that show genuine interest. And remember, we all ride the same bus to school. So you can see your whole life that they're looking in the direction of those men who they know are bad for them, who they know don't show up, skip class, encourage bad behavior and all of that. But they literally have their eyes fixed on them from 5th grade all the way to graduation.
But even the young boys are influenced by the same girls that that you're talking about that like those guys. Those same guys that are their age are also being influenced by those older guys. I've heard numerous stories how younger guys look up to the older guys that are in the hood that are doing their thing, and that was what they wanted to emulate. And when they got older, they wanted to do the same thing because they saw in their mind the benefits that came along with that. They had fresh gold change, they had a girl, they had all of those things. So everybody is trying to access the, I guess, Pookie or whoever that's in that hood that is what they deem successful in that environment.
To jump back to
real fast, Marky, give me a second, because Enos was sitting here.
Mark.
Let's try to let her go, and then we're gonna let you go. Okay, Marky. If I see y'all's hand like this, I'm gonna let you go. I promise, because we gotta stop jumping over. But go ahead.
So I think we oversimplify like choosing those guys, right? Like the guys in the gang culture. I think like we sit here and we talk about what women value, and then because we don't value those men, we don't see what women see in them. If you are living in an environment where it is dangerous to your physical safety, as a woman, you are going to attach yourself to the man that can keep you safe. Yes, it is the same men inflicting, it's the same men that are inflicting the danger in the first place. But Mike. No.
She right. She right, bro.
No,
She right.
let me tell you this. This is a true story, and this goes on what Enos is saying. I had a story when I was in middle school. There was this guy. He was a big, he was a, and not a guy I would even date. I'm the same chick I was in middle school. Not a guy, but I kind of was like, oh, play like I like him because it was kind of like some protection. Never answer his phone calls, nothing of that sort. Never walk in the hallway with him. But I was like, oh, just for that protection. Because I'd be scared too.
So it's not just the protection, right? There's also the provision part of it. We tend to focus on the provision part of it because they tend to be kind of flashy, most of them. But the protection part is a huge part. And like, it's not like the same way that women value protection when they're in an environment that's a little bit safer. Like, these are people really struggling for base necessities the majority of the time, right? That requirement for protection is at a heightened level because that determines whether or not you make it to the next day. And so I don't know why we take the humanity out of these people and go strictly off of the stereotypes. We lose those aspects of those people when we do that.
I don't know. I think you're making an excuse for them. Let
me ask you a question, Mike, because I know where you about to go. Because this happens all the time. Because first of all, I would assume you're talking about Pookeishas, okay? Because if they're in the day, if she's going after Pookie, she's probably a Pookeisha, okay? But everybody wants to reform
Not all the
Pookeisha,
time.
but nobody wants to reform Pookie. Everybody's out here like, trying to save the girl from the streets. Because if she's showing herself on Instagram, she's probably for the streets.
This particular line of questioning is pretty funny, but I think it's because we think all things are equal between men and women. If you'll notice, because of the it's not even really respect, it's awareness that we have between men to understand that nigga just gonna do what the hell he gonna do. No, like I'm dead serious. No, hold on. Listen. Now, I'm not joking. I'm more dangerous than Pookie is. I'm not scared of Pookie. You see what I'm saying? Pookie don't mess with me. See, this is the real life thing that I don't understand. When I look to my left and my right, I see men that take care of their children, handle all their business. Pookie go the other way when he see me coming. He don't want to speak to me because when there are listen, hold on. When there are men with real life, hold on. When they see men with real life results, right, that did things the right way, that never been to jail, that don't have to hide from their police, as you get older and more mature, they realize this is the life that they could have had. They only have respect and admiration out of fear, right? So when you're saying like you're scared of them, no, these men, like, they only live, they can only be who they are in that section of the city. They're not getting invites to the governor's ball. That's what I'm saying. So when they start to see life led a different way and start to see that, there are people that are honorable, that look like me, that do honorable things, that'll pull a hole in somebody's head too, right? And he can legally carry a gun around, whereas I got to hide my, like, shit like that actually counts. What I'm saying more so is that it's not always Pookeisha. I understand there's a dynamic between men that exists to say, I'm not changing him in his behavior. He has an incentive to do whatever he's doing, and he chose that life. He chose the life.
It's all choice. What are we talking about here? Just like you're saying, he's choosing what he's doing. Pookeisha is choosing to be only. She's choosing that. But it seems to be a constant, push to change Pookeisha, but not to change Pookie.
So I think where we're coming at is that is what the women are always saying: save me from this man. Y'all always behave like the damsels in distress when it comes to these dudes. And really what I'm saying is there is no changing them. Men understand that you don't change other men. You form a tribe with like-minded men. Let me ask you a question I've been asking all week on panels. Do you see any similarities, seriously, between me and Jay Prince? Do you think that we will be friends in real life?
No, but I think that Jay Prince is willing to I listen to Jay Prince and I love Jay Prince because I think Jay Prince tries to learn. Like he's there, he listens. You know, he may not get it because he's a product. You know, but I like Jay Prince because I think that he has this willingness to accept. You know, hear information and try to learn something better. Try to
No, but I'm saying similarities between us as men. So you'll see. I don't know if y'all were watching.
The answer
YouTube.
is no.
I was
Right,
gonna say
but
I
okay,
don't know. I don't know if y'all seen YouTube this week, but he went on B. Taylor's episode and cut up a damn fool, and then I went right
Oh,
on
Jay,
after him.
what are you doing? I gotta go
Yo,
watch
and I
it.
went right up on there
I
and said,
love Jay Prince.
you see why y'all keep telling us we cannot change Pookie. He is firm and steadfast in his beliefs. I form my own tribe of people who don't believe what he believes.
But
I'm
why
not
do you
trying to
think that
change
it's
him.
okay? But why? But my question is, I accept that. But why do you think you can change Bukisha? People are just gonna do what they think it. So you're out here trying to save hoes, basically.
No.
You
So
understand?
this
Make a
is
hoe a housewife so you can have
no.
more
So
choices, and you don't even understand that she's just the
here's the difference between Pookie and Pookiesha. Here's the difference between Pookie and Pookiesha. Pookiesha is a survivalist because she's a woman. Keisha always is going to look for advancement in life. And once she realized that protector, provider is not actually Pookie, it's Trigger Mike, then she comes knocking at my door trying to be my second wife. You got to
But
see it
she
to believe.
still listen. If she's one,
but you won't take her.
What you
She's been ran through.
Her ass had enough of Mike.
Exactly. What people don't understand is, and you don't get me wrong, this is not for everyone. You get yourself in a situation, just like women when they date Pookie and they're not, they have a different value. When men date women who do not have the same values or don't have that same foundation, they find themselves butting heads and thinking she does not value the same thing that you value when it comes to raising your children, how you move. She's more willing to leave because that's just not, something she's seen growing up, which leads to higher divorce rates. You can't say either one unless they both are being going to therapy or there's something that's being done to change that mindset, professionally done to change that mindset. That's just my, opinion. That's an opinion. But
I just want to add real quick, and this actually kind of goes to your point, Miss Shan. So I myself ran with a gang when I was younger, in my youth.
I don't see
and the what?
I don't see.
217 Hoover Crip. That's how we got down. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation.
Did you just throw up a set?
I did. So anyway,
they think we squares, man.
They don't get it.
What does the square have to do with anything? I'm just saying.
I'm just getting to the. I'm
trading if you not because I ain't.
Oh no. Okay. Anyway, what I found was I was never interested in any of the chicks that was after my homeboys. None of them. Not a one. We didn't have similar interests. There was nothing in common, and they were some hoes. So I was the past kind of guy, like back then. And what I've learned is, especially listening in these spaces, most of the men in these spaces are the past kind of dudes. Like I hear guys talk about ladies keep your legs closed and you have the access to the sex, which all of that is true, right? But y'all not smashing none of them hoes. Why are we talking about them hoes? Even if they come close to your orbit, you gonna pass up because you're gonna realize that she ain't shit. Let's just be all the way real, all the way around. We're not dealing with them bras unless we're dry and we're trying to smash. And most of the men I've noticed are married or about to be married or with longtime girlfriends that I see in these spaces. And they're not trying to smash any of them chicks. So why are we trying to change them chicks? Leave the Pookieshas for the Pookies, leave the Pookies for the Pookieshas. And let's just keep this shit moving. And if they want to go down that terrible path, it's on them to go down that terrible path. That's a choice they have to make. So this should be crazy to me. I was just listening to you, Shane. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be real one time. Like, Marcus, was you really checking for them hoes? Keep it a bean. Was you really checking for them outside of a smash and go?
If he was in church smashing, or what the hell do you think he was doing in the hood?
No. Did you hear how? Did you hear how I worded the question? Did you hear how I worded the question?
He left the church threesome and went and had a house
But
threesome.
wait, but did you hear how I worded it? I said except for maybe a smash.
Don't go off camera now, Negro.
Except for a smash and go. You're not trying to date one of them chicks. You're not trying to let your homeboys see you around none of them chicks. Like that was like no. No, like, oh man, you with Keisha, cuz? Oh man, look, she got that bomb, don't she? Because you know how. Come on, man.
AP. It's actually so. I told you I was hood adjacent, and I was in the hood getting that. It's so the part that's really bad. That's why I said I said about church is that I think those girls are easier. They associate everything with sex, and and being easy and doing all of that. So. They looked at me like, oh, he a smart boy. He got a car and all this type of shit. So, they kind of like that shit. They'll fuck with you early. That's why I was like, you go there to get the easy pickings. But
I didn't have a whip.
Let me ask you this, Mike.
I was in my homeboy whip.
When you went to church, right? And you think about the best 5 looking girls at the church. Do you remember what their boyfriends looked like or who they were?
About the goofiest nigga in the church, maybe. Yeah,
that was the at church boyfriend in because they used to be like that was the approved boyfriend to get out the house.
Exactly.
The boyfriend to get up out the house.
Damn! I don't know if you watch Suits. That was what happened to Lewis. She went out with Lewis.
I haven't got to that part yet.
Oh damn! The girl was using him to get up out the house because the dad loved him. I'll have her home by 10, Mr. H. Like,
oh dang, I gotta get to that part.
Miss Parker just made a very great comment. The people that I was talking about, she was like, these people are a part of the population's biggest influence. That's what we got to figure out how to remove.
I 100% agree with
their influence.
The dads need to be the biggest. The dads, the clean cut guys, the guys that go to work, the working man needs to be the biggest influence in any community. Not the musicians, not the womanizers and all of that. We've had our fill of that, but I think naturally society corrects itself to that because that degeneracy now, like, the rate at which rappers have gone to jail in 2023 is crazy.
Dying.
Dying and or going to jail.
So the problem with that is this, Trigger Mike, because this is why I wanted to drag it back to Ina's original point when she said, if you want to see something change, but you remove the elements that could spark the change from the community, then you can't then look back to the community and be like, why hasn't it changed?
That's a good point.
So
go ahead.
Sorry, keeps calling Cap. AP, you seen the movie Saw?
Once, I think, maybe twice.
Great. So you understand after watching that movie that the illusion of choice is not actually real choice, because deleting somebody versus cutting off your own foot, and those are your only 2 choices, they're not real choices, right?
They're real choices. They're just not good ones.
So I don't understand why we don't understand how people in the hood are under similar conditions. Like, how do we not understand that their choices?
Because you have a choice. I had the same exact choices that everybody else had. I had the same exact choices. I could have gone upstairs and gone to bed, or I could have sat out on the stoop and sold dope. I could have went to school the next day.
Well, you said you was in a gang, didn't you?
You even threw up a sign.
So you did make a choice based on your environment.
Right, but I also went upstairs. when the street lights came on and took my ass to bed.
So
I also woke up on time to get on the school bus on time, to be on school on time, so that I didn't have to live in the damn hood my entire life.
So
I had friends that didn't make those same choices.
In all fairness, AP,
that was the difference.
Did you get a scholarship to play football
Man, that's irrelevant. I see where you're going. That's irrelevant.
Did you?
I did.
Okay, so we not the same in regards to choices. I can clearly recognize.
But I also had a 3.85. So no matter what, I was going to college based off of the choices that I decided to make. We need to quit giving passes when I know what choices are available to them.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. You have just proven my entire point. You have just absolutely, through your own personal life experiences, have proven my point. Okay. That if you are not able to think critically and think independently, you get stuck in the options that are presented to you. That the ability to think critically and to think for yourself and not follow the flock will allow you to find success. That is my whole point.
To be fair, he agreed though. He agreed earlier.
No, but he was giving pushback on the illusion of choice. It's the fact that you were instilled with the tools to think for yourself and not continue down the path that would have ruined those opportunities for you, right? That allowed you to do that. Had you not had that, you probably would have made similar decisions as everybody else because those were the only choices that you felt you had at the time. That's the premise behind the choice. You have to be able to think outside and create a new opportunity, a new choice. But if you don't know how to do that, you're stuck choosing between the options that you're presented.
So what was it? Genetics? Because that's not environment. Because I'm proving that it's not environment that. And this is the point I do agree with.
How tall
that you were saying. The what?
How tall are you?
6'1".
Wait.
Right now or back then?
No, back then.
You don't want to say it. You don't want to say it.
I was 231 going into college.
What is it? 440 time or what? No, what is the
my 40 time? Yeah. I ran a 4.61.
Was that's exceptional? That's pretty good.
That's pretty solid, especially back then with them heavy ass fucking pads on. That's pretty solid.
Okay, and what is the point in all of this?
Genetics.
He's checking my stats. It's all good.
I'm saying his genetics are because now this is partially what I do agree with the guy on in regards to opportunity, right? Like if you have a for the sake of sports, superior genetic combination, right? Specifically speaking, for the sake of sports, I'm not trying to say anybody genetics inferior or superior, but that does provide opportunity that would differentiate you from the rest of those people. But
I want to be the best athlete of all my homeboys. How crazy is that? So to me, all of my homeboys had the same opportunities that I had they taken advantage of them. Had they made just simple, different choices, they too could have excelled and been something better than what we were supposed, and I'm putting quotes around it, supposed to be. But a lot of them chose different pathways.
Was their home environment similar to your home environment?
Most of us were single moms, yeah. Most of us. Some of us had dads in the house.
So did you have a dad in the house? Okay. What differentiated your thought process from theirs that made you say, I want to have a 3.5? What was the defining factor at the pinpoint?
When I was 11, I saw a guy get shot 25 times.
So trauma.
So that wasn't going to be me.
Okay.
Now, how were you able to associate seeing that with doing good in school?
It was one of my OGs, and his way wasn't the way that I thought was a successful way to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to do something different. I can't do the same shit that nigga was doing.
But my I guess the thing is that understanding that for you, the thing that clicked was the way for me to have a better opportunity is I have to make sure that I get a better that I take advantage of my education. So I was trying to figure out how.
Okay, so there's a part of the thought process that I'm leaving out for the sake of. There's a part of the thought process I'm leaving out for the sake of argument.
Okay, but so my
and I'm not gonna let it. I'm not gonna approve. I was right. I refuse it.
So the reason I asked that is because part of that, that thought process is that not everybody experiences trauma the same. Not everybody experiences certain things the same. It is not making up excuses. The thing is that understanding. And I think that's what it boils down to. A lot of times we say, well, I did it. Why couldn't you do it? I made a different choice. You could have made the same choice I did. But circumstances and things that they were exposed to, things that they experienced can be different, even though y'all are in the same environment. Like how I said, I was, raised in the hood, but I wasn't of the hood. And that was because my home environment was totally different, the environment in which my home was in. So while all of this crazy stuff was going around outside, once I left my home, you know what I'm saying? So I was exposed to both. So I was able to see I can go this way, the way that my parents are raising me, and they are an example, of what I guess their lives are going good, versus seeing some parents of the people that were outside of my home and seeing how they lived. And those two influences, being able to see both and say, okay, you know what, this might look like a better choice. Let me go that route. But that doesn't mean that I still didn't have influences of the outside environment as well, because that way also seemed a little fun. It seemed intriguing versus what I had going on in the house. So, so it could have gone either way is what I'm saying.
So I got the opportunity to see, to see it from both sides. The part that I skipped out is from pretty much the middle part of my sophomore year all the way through my senior year. While my mom lived in the projects, I went home to sleep, wake up, catch the bus, and go to school. The social group, I intentionally created a completely different social group so I didn't have to go home. So I didn't have to go back to the projects. What I would do is the middle linebacker, who was my best friend at the time, his dad was the principal of the school. So after school, I would go directly to their house. I'd hang out over there till about 9:30, go home, finish homework, rinse and repeat every day, just so I didn't have to deal with the mayhem.
If you didn't have access to that man, where do you think you would be right now?
It's hard for me to do that hypothetical because I don't know.
Right, that's fair.
Like all of the stuff with picking the right college, right, and then even transferring to the college I ended up at. Like their voices were very instrumental in that process. So it's hard for me to say where I would have ended up. What I do know is I wouldn't have been in Central Arkansas. That's what I can say with 100% certainty. I would either be in Dallas, Texas with my brother and my sister right now, or I would be somewhere else. But it wouldn't have been Central Arkansas. That's for damn sure.
But you still would have went home, went in the house, and studied the same way you did with access to that. Okay.
Yes. But the problem is, so I'll give you an example. One of my friends ended up going to jail, right? And he made a decision that I typically would have been able to talk him out of. They decided to do something stupid. That was one of those situations where I wasn't in projects. I wasn't there, right? But there was also a situation where a homeboy ended up getting shot. That could have been me with them then, right? So instead of that homeboy getting shot, it could have been me, and that would have been the end of anything that I had going on with college. You get shot in a major limb like your legs or your arms, that's a wrap. So it's hard to say exactly where I would have been or where I would be, but I do know that I would not be there where they are. And I've tried to get them out. That's the other thing that's funny to me. As an adult, I've tried to get them out. They refuse to move, even without families. How insane is that?
Yeah, that is. People tend to give up. So yeah, that is insane.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I appreciate you guys listening to me go on my whole run through in the past, but I just kind of thought it was related. I'm done.
Can we do that super chat and then we're gonna wrap things up? We're losing members
Oh
and
Lord,
stuff.
it's 2
It's my
o'clock. Yes,
fault.
ma'am.
I'm the one who started so late. I apologize again, you guys.
Big Ant 11 with the 10 ball. Wait, Trigger Mike, you've never been to jail? Oh, hell no.
What
Oh.
the hell? Of course not. What the hell? I skipped that rite of passage for being black. Thank you. To the best of my ability, I don't volunteer as tribute.
I think that's another thing that we need to kill some of these false stereotypes.
But how do we
stereotype? But just like what we deem
like
to be cool and what we deem to, we put on a pedestal.
like the guy just asked Mike, like, I know it was all in jest. Hey, you ain't been to jail, and Trigger Mike's
Yeah, he was joking.
reply is, I skipped that part of black or whatever it is. Black folk, we don't just go to jail. Like we don't.
Majority of black people are not in jail. I think,
right.
My biggest dilemma runs me back to the original thing, because in order to change the image of what you want black people in society to look like, you would have to be at the concentrate and then pollute or purify the well in which people pull the public image from. And you can't do that if you go and sit in another group's public image. Like it makes no logical sense. And then to complain about it, you can't do both. You can't not want the solution and then complain about that there is no solution without actively providing a solution. I think that's my biggest point. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Either we're gonna solve it or we're not gonna solve it and we ain't gonna say shit about it.
I agree.
We can't just sit there and just point the finger.
True.
I can point the finger.
We see.
I'm pretty good at that.
I damn near snitched on a homeboy tonight.
Yeah, we see.
I said I am not
I had
in
to
an hour
that
early.
back.
I usually end at 1 o'clock.
Yo, I forgot to tell her.
This is
good
almost
we
3
had
hours.
Coach
We go
K.
to 3 hours.
We had Coach K until 1 p.m. Central. That is a record, I'm sure.
Yeah, she usually is gone. She was here until 1. Yeah, you're right,
Central, yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy. But and I agree with what you're saying, Marcus. We have to, or at least get to the point where even if you move away, you're still giving back to the community. You're still trying to do things to change the way,
Even if it's just a mentorship role or adoption or
absolutely.
But if you're not gonna do that, you can't get joined in with the other groups of people saying, "See, that's why I'm not like them." Come on, bro.
Right.
That's like what you call it. Oh shit! That's like dirty macking without sex. It's just weird. I don't know. It's like
I'm trying to see what you're saying.
As I hope you don't mind, I'm gonna give you a message from GBG Big Von. Nas is fine though. He just wanted to make sure you knew that and read that. You are fine, ma'am. And you're also a wife material.
Thank you. But
I think he's from Atlanta.
She could.
They're not going anywhere. No, so I don't know. I feel a little bit conflicted about people leaving the community and giving back, because I think it's still important to give back to the community, but we get into this like dangerous territory where you are now providing solutions without actually understanding what the problem is, because you were not a part of the community. And so it comes off really patronizing, as if these people are like this denigrating way of doing charity, and it's not actually like uplifting to those people, right? So I think if there's no ego and the intent is to actually help, then great. But I think the brain drain really needs to stop from those communities, so those communities can flourish from within.
Yeah, I think it's too far
I
gone.
agree.
I'm not even playing. Because you're 100% right, and I wish that's what could happen. But even in the most minimal sense, most of these communities have fallen into a degeneracy so bad that even the people who try to cultivate this amongst themselves, those groups are easily broken, right? Because the environment is unsafe in most of those communities. So everybody is on alert, hiding their children, keeping their children out of, which kind of makes them, when they get on the bus, they're not willing to fully engage in the community in the way people should, and that I think that's the worst part about it. So the solution, like Marcus said, if we're actually going to talk about a solution, we actually have the same solution, just different ways of executing. My thing is to level yourself up if you can, if you're lucky, and start a tribe elsewhere where people aren't as afraid to engage with people that look like you. And he doesn't believe that the hood is so far gone that it can't be saved. So that's the only part where we really differ.
So Trigger Mike, I really think that you should change the color in your kitchen to the opposite color. It's just not working. I don't think the color of your kitchen works. Like you really need to change it. And then in the hallway, you also need to change that color. And then in your bathroom, I see a whole vision for a makeup of how I could do like really amazing things with your home.
I see the point he's making.
I don't. He's gonna have to keep going. I didn't know he was an interior decorator.
So I just also want to point out that, like,
AP, can you explain the point to him?
Basically, how can you basically say that the hood is really too far gone when you yourself are not even in the hood? Like, how can he tell you how to decorate your house when he's not at your house? He don't live in your house. I don't know if he's ever been to your house.
I'm not hanging out there.
You know what I'm saying? So how can he tell you how to dress your house?
But why is this? This is what I'm trying to understand. Just like y'all are making an excuse to why you can't tell a man, y'all don't make the same. Y'all every day y'all on here talking about women and their whoredom. They just whores.
We agree.
Who is y'all?
We agree.
I started off with a soliloquy on I address men.
I have seen more campaigns on here about trying to make people feel bad about OnlyFans and every other thing that they do. And you just won't accept the fact that God has given you a platform. So at least now you can recognize who they are.
So to that point,
I mean, it also makes good content. So,
so because Shan brought
like,
it
we
up,
don't believe these hoes can be saved. I'm just trying to give views.
So because Shan brought it up, and God giving Trigger Mike his platform, can we just all recognize that when he was going off about how he thinks the hood is too far gone, that his mic wavered, and now it's back to normal?
You know what?
That is so true.
Oh, won't he do it? Won't he
Hey,
do
look, Mike, you had the last segment. I'll be quiet after this, but the last segment of your show is something I completely agreed with. I want to say it was Ali that was saying it. We as men need to stop giving attention to these hoes.
Simple message.
Like that's the fix it to everything. We need to stop giving attention to these hoes. Like stop liking their pics, stop hitting the DMs. Fuck these hoes unless you're
something is happening because I tried to respond. I just bit my tongue. God damn.
That's the
God damn.
Somebody got a doll on you.
Oh.
But that's the answer, in my opinion, because I have constantly and always said that attention is a woman's favorite currency.
It is.
It's actually not money. It's attention. And if you remove the attention, they're going to figure out the best way to get that attention.
So,
and if that means that they need to close their legs and start acting more ladylike, many of them might try that.
So realistically, I could never disagree with what you're saying. I have a different viewpoint on it, because everything that the women receive via social media and all of that attention is fake. It's not substantial, and it doesn't actually lead to real wins for them. What it is, and that's why I put it to Ali that way. It's like, because he's in real estate, perceived value versus actual value. Sexual attention does not equal a relationship attention. And we use the minimal amount of women who are able to maybe convert, and because everybody is jealous of those outcomes because it's a ball player or somebody who has a lot of money, that is literally less than 1% of 1% of people that can accomplish that in these spaces, right? Because for the real woman who decides to start an OnlyFans and put herself out there like that, what society has never actually increased her value for relationships and marriage, which is how we ultimately grant that value stamp on women. It still degrades, and it degrades their value. So that's all I'm saying, is that the attention is actually fake. So as long as we keep those parts separate, to where women who remain chaste, women who are actually doing the work to get marriage, to get into relationships, achieve that through the same means they always have, the Instagram women aren't really winning at all. It's just the appearance of
synthetic opium and omnivore and poppy omnivore semnivore produce the same high to a junkie. If they addicted to it, they're gonna get high on either one, sexual attention.
I don't like that analogy. They're not
you gotta
opium.
remember, women like adoration. You know what I'm saying? Like women like to be adored. Women like to be desired. Women like to be like attention. Some of them. So you are feeding into their likes. You know, you are. And then you have money after that. The more likes she gets, the more chances for her to make money.
The only reason why I would say that, because I definitely agree. Like I said, I could never disagree with that. Is what means are the valuable men using to choose women? And I think, the same way you said that more men need to stop paying them attention, you will see the meaningful men who want meaningful relationships not use that method as much, because it is Pookie using that, and it's men of low value, low class using that method to get what they want from women, because those men have actually always been around. So what they're going to use, and have you ever noticed this? There's a certain group of society, and every ethnic group, every race of people, whatever, it's associated with cheating. They always take shortcuts. That's all social media is a shortcut, an easier way to achieve your goal. But it's, like I said, it does not amount to what the people who do it the real way, the process of dating and going to meet a woman and getting to know her the right way, they're the ones who actually get the outcome. So as long as that still stays true, I'm saying that a like is a look. I can look all I want on social media. It should not prompt you to degrade your value by starting an OnlyFans. Men, go ahead.
Listen, you're right, but it's okay. Most women who are sound, these women that you want, are not going to. It don't matter if $2 million is in their face. They're not going to start an OnlyFans, because it's something about them, the way they were raised, their values, that will not allow them to be on OnlyFans. Okay, so what I'm saying to you is, I don't know what I'm saying. It's just too early in the morning for it. Go ahead.
So I will say it. The thing that we're skirting around. Unfortunately, we've reached a point in society where that's not stopping some women from getting married. And as long as some women are still getting married while still exhibiting those behaviors, you will have a slew of women who may not get the same result that will replicate it. It doesn't matter how insignificant it is. But we literally just got finished talking about how the Pookies and Pookishas have more influence than the amount of them that exist. It's the same thing in this scenario. Yes, it is a finite amount of women exhibiting these behaviors and still getting married, and yet they're propped up to encourage other women to do the same thing. You cut that out, and women are not getting married while still exhibiting these behaviors. There's no example to hold up for women who want to exhibit those behaviors.
See, I like it when I can agree with Anaz and she can clean up my point.
Simping.
Look.
Look. Simping is when I'm trying to get something out of them.
I'm just calling it out.
Let me address this now. Simping is when a man is
I'm joking.
Putting a woman above himself in the whole.
I don't like when you guys make points I can't refute. So I'm just gonna beat
Damn
up
it,
on you.
me neither.
I'm just gonna beat up on you because I can't call her wrong.
I hate you. God damn it, son.
Did anybody else want to add to this before I shut it down?
Y'all thought y'all was gonna eat with that real estate video, didn't you?
What real estate video? Are you talking about what the guy saying the environment?
Yeah, I thought y'all was
No, I think that that's true, and the reason why I say that that's true is because I'm in a school system, and I just see the power of influence in the hallways. You know, these kids can come from I've met parents, great households, and then when you get to school, I mean, that's the kid who get caught sucking in the bathroom, like there ain't no camera, like we can't, like, you know, that environment outside of the household does play a part. Maybe not obviously she has a foundation or that he has a foundation, you know, you go back to that, but for a small amount of time in the classroom, like not in the classroom, but at school, they are around their peers and they can be easily influenced to be a way that they were not raised to be. Because I would even say you raise your kids right, and then you find out your daughter is not a virgin anymore. That was influence. Somebody influenced her not to be a virgin anymore. You're probably like, I'm promoting virginity. You know, I take her to let her go to church every Sunday, and then you find out your daughter's not a virgin.
Ooh, you're speaking in general. I was about to say, hold on, let me go kick down some doors. If she's talking to y'all and ain't talking to me now.
So that was a power of influence that changed her from her teachings to being like, now she's not, because I'm pretty sure most solid households they teach virgin, you know, be a virtuous woman, blah blah blah. But we know they don't end up carrying out past high school for most.
I'm gonna tell you something funny, Shan. I actually didn't preach that. What I preached was be able to talk to me about any and everything, so we can have an honest dialogue to figure out what the best solution is.
Well, that's probably critical thinking. Exactly. You should definitely tell her not to do.
So it wasn't a preaching of preserve your box, preserve your box, preserve your box. It was always a preaching of best practice, best practice, best practice, and why. So when you drill that in, and then you show video, some of the most disgusting and grossest videos you as a man could watch with your damn daughter. When you couple all of that training, yeah, we watch videos on gonorrhea, syphilis, like all kinds of shit. Anyway, that's not gonna go too far. When you couple that with being active and explaining the choices and the options and trying to give certain pieces of the game on how boys will view her and stuff like that, I think that so far has led her to the best choices. So far, we still got a ways to go.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. It's getting a little late. This young lady has a conference to go to in the morning. Does anybody else want to? Last word? Anything last minute? We don't have any.
Is the conference for education?
It's not for education. Well, I'm being educated, but no, it's not for education.
Oh, okay. I was like, if you get any of those, invite me because I got to go to 2 this year, and I don't do that.
Those anywhere, like, you know. As a matter of fact, I went to 2. So my school hasn't started. It doesn't start until Monday, my regular job. But I went to 2 conferences Thursday. That's why I was so tired today, because I was so used to. I just wasn't ready to go back into the groove of thing. But Jesus,
I used to be able to send people to it in my department.
Mm.
Now they want me to go. Like shit. I don't like doing that stuff. It's boring.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you guys for being so patient with me, not us, because it was definitely me. Starting late, I do apologize. And thank you for hanging in there, you late nighters. I know Isaiah likes to stay up net late in the chat. He gets mad when I cut this thing off. But it's been 3 hours. I think that's a decent amount of time.
He's trying to show you he love you.
Yes. No, he like
everybody loves Shan.
He like you
Yeah, he's like Ali be going nuts. He trying to make sure he don't.
And his mic cut off.
Isaiah said, nah, bye. Hilarious. Thanks for everybody for sticking in there with us. Thanks for coming today. We'll see you next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night.
Don't make that mouth sound again, please.
Shut up, Mike.